Acostumbrada. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Um, Welcome to a regular session of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We'll also be sitting as the board for all special taxing districts. Now, this is July 23rd, 2018. It's 9:02, 9:03 a.m., and I'm calling this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everybody please stand up and join us on the Pledge of Allegiance? Supervisor McLeod, would you please lead us?
Sure. Please join me. I
pledge
pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And the first item in the agenda, other than the Pledge of Allegiance, is call to the public. And the call to the public is held for the public's benefit to allow individuals to address issues within the board's jurisdiction. Board members may not discuss items that are not specifically identified on the agenda. Therefore, pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, action taken as a result of public comment will be limited to directing staff to study the matter, responding to criticism, or scheduling the matter for further discussion and decision at a future date. Now, in call to the public, we normally, if it is not an item, it's not an agenda, we normally ask you to fill in a form. But if you didn't fill in the form and you still want to come up here, it's not a problem. But I do have a form signed by Mayra Alexander. It's about donation drive, so come in, Mayra. You seem to be familiar to us.
Good morning, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. My name is Mayra Alexandria. I'm with Human Resources Benefits Department. And today I have Alicia Munoz with Hospice of Yuma. And today we're here to talk about our Corporate Cup Challenge that we have going on now. We're on the 5th year. And currently there's 9 other employers participating in the Corporate Cup Challenge. And what that is a series of competitive events with physical activities, promoting wellness within employers, and fundraising events. And for this fundraising event, we have partnered with Hospice, and I'll let Alicia explain the donation need for this event.
Yes, thank you. We are Hospice of Yuma, and we are the only nonprofit in town. Been around for 36 years. We have 5 times more charitable care patients than we did last year. And so when Myra called and said they would like to do a drive, we are in need of baby wipes. The baby wipes go a long way to help our charitable care patients, along with our patients that have insurance and the caregivers. So we want to thank Yuma County for partnering with us again this year. We truly appreciate it.
And with that, our fundraising event started July 1st and it goes to August 3rd. And Human Resources is collecting all donations. We are going to go out to departments as well too if they can bring them directly to us.
So it's baby wipes.
Baby wipes, yes.
Baby wipes galore.
Yes.
All right. So this is a reminder to everybody. We need to be baby wiped, huh?
Mr. Chairman, I serve on the board for Hospice of Yuma, and I have to tell you, it is an amazing, amazing organization, and the services they provide to those with insurance as well as those without insurance in their final days is just unbelievable.
So it's awesome.
So,
You really do a great job.
thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wants to address the board on the call to the public? If not, then, you let us know in which part of the agenda you want to address us, and we'll see then. All right, the next item in the agenda is presentations, proclamations, and appointments. During this segment of the agenda, board members may discuss the presentations and proclamations, may announce appointments to the Yuma County Planning and Zoning Commission and the Yuma County Board of Adjustments. No legal action will be taken. Is there anyone in the board that wants to make an appointment? Okay, then the first item here, while you think about it, is a presentation of the county line by Yuma 77, the Yuma County Government Channel.
Intense training for an active shooter in Yuma County. Our elections office trains on new equipment and will give you the opportunity to try it before the election. And it's that time of year again. Parents, don't wait until the last minute. These stories and more, this is your County Line. nobody likes hearing about or watching an active shooter situation on the news. Unfortunately, today it's an occurrence happening all too frequently, which not only forces our local first responders to think about it, but train to respond. Recently, the Yuma County Sheriff's Office worked with our Emergency Management Office to bring real-life active shooter training to Yuma County. Knowing all too well that when responding to these types of emergencies, multiple agencies from across the county would respond.
It's another great opportunity for Yuma County agencies to train together and have our instructors build teams so we can go back and instruct all our local law enforcement the same way.
The multi-day training is done in a classroom setting, but is combined with actual scenarios where first responders are forced to work together to eliminate the threat. The Yuma County Sheriff's Office reminds everyone that they can help too. It's not meant to sound cliché, but if you see something, say something. Handling emergencies like this can be easier if detection is early. Yuma County voters will see the latest in voting technology during the upcoming 2018 primary election. Yuma County Elections Department recently received new voting and tabulation machines. The Express Vote machines are intended to make voting quicker and easier. Also, for anyone that is interested, Yuma County Elections will be holding an Elections Equipment Open House. The public is invited to come visit our elections office at 197 South Main Street in Old Town, Yuma from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Wednesday, August 1st through Friday, August 10th. You'll be able to ask questions and learn all the details of the equipment being used.
The benefit of having the open house is that we'll have a mock preloaded election so that people who are interested in looking at the new elections equipment can come on in. They can vote and actually have the ballots tabulated so they can see how the election works from beginning to end.
Now, the county is not doing away with the old fill-in-the-bubble ballots. There are still voters that wish to use the pencil and paper method. The new machines will be at all vote centers for the Tuesday, August 28th primary election and in the Yuma County Recorder's Office for early voting purposes. Summer's here and kids are out of school. Most parents won't think about school again until it's time to buy pens and folders, but this month you can beat the lines at the immunization clinic and get in early. That's right, beat the back-to-school rush. The Yuma County Health District offers year-round immunization services. Make sure you bring proof of residency, like a utility bill, ID, rent check, or other acceptable proof. Don't forget to bring a qualifying card such as access or insurance. Unless otherwise qualified, vaccines will cost $10 per child per visit, cash only. Remember, all children under the age of 18 must be accompanied by their parents or legal guardian.
It's probably the most important thing parents will do as they get their kids ready for school. When they get their kids vaccinated, they're protecting them against measles, mumps, pertussis, and various other illnesses. And then they're also protecting other children in school that their kids are going to be around.
The back-to-school immunization clinics for this year will be held in the Health District Auditorium July 23rd through August 3rd from 8:30 to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. To find out more about shot schedules, visit us on the web at yumacountyaz.gov.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth and this is your Health Watch. It is no secret that Yuma is hot in the summer, but that shouldn't hold us back from doing the things we love. Heat exhaustion can happen when the body loses an excessive amount of salt and water. Here are some simple precautions you can take to prevent heat-related illnesses. Stay cool. Limit your outdoor activity to morning and evening hours. Wear lightweight, light-colored, loose-fitting clothing. Rest often in shaded areas. Protect yourself from the sun by wearing a wide brim hat and sunglasses by putting on sunscreen of SPF 15 or higher. Stay hydrated. Drink water before, during, and after physical activity. Stay informed. Check the extreme heat alerts and familiarize yourself with cooling shelters and water sites throughout Yuma County. Check regularly on infants and young children, people aged 65 or older, people who have a mental illness or physically ill. Bottom line, if you're going to be out in the sun, it is important to stay hydrated and learn about these heat-related illnesses. Remember, Stay cool, stay hydrated, stay informed. This is all for now. Until next time, stay healthy, Yuma.
In this county line, we take a look inside Yuma County Juvenile Justice Center, which is comprised of a number of different services, all with the same goal, helping young people in the system to become successful.
Basically, our mission statement is to protect children and families, to promote justice and accountability, and to provide rehabilitation for a safer Yuma. Our detention center is built to the level of a medium security prison. And so kids that go into detention had individual cells. We try to keep them out and active and doing some type of programming. They're required to do a minimum of 5 hours of education every day. They're getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes they're going to bed at 7 o'clock at night. So here there's 3 different levels of probation. The very first level and the lowest is what we call diversion. That's for children that commit a minor offense. But in a diversion, they don't really come into the court system. The first level of actual probation is called standard probation. That's usually for your first-time offenders. And then our more serious kids, the kids that need more supervision, go on to what's called a level of intensive probation. We also have our own charter high school, which is quite unique. It's the first charter high school ever sponsored by a juvenile court. Population went from 45 all the way up to 140 because that's how many kids we have in need. But I'm happy to say only 25 to 30% of the children that attend Aztec are actually on probation. And the misconception that people have with Aztec, it is not tied to detention, and it's not a detention school. It's open to the public. Now, we also have the Hope Assessment Center, and basically the philosophy is that all children are capable of success, no exceptions. And what that means is that they have a chance to succeed. It doesn't mean they're all going to succeed. It's a philosophy of looking at strength-based, looking at successes that children have, but it's believing, and it's being able to have that connection with children, and it's being able to mentally time travel. So it's just made up of those 3 universal truths. I think we're headed into a positive direction. I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the staff, the dedication that we have. So it's a wonderful place to be. It's a big family, and you don't see that type of atmosphere many places.
You can learn more about the Yuma County Juvenile Justice Center by navigating to yumacountyaz.gov. Before we head out, we want to call attention to a little fun we had recently with the Yuma County Sheriff's Office. If you enjoy social media, you'll know the latest sensation to go viral is all of the law enforcement agencies in the nation challenging each other to the Lip Sync Challenge. Recently, our very own Sheriff's Office was challenged, a call to the communications office, and we were happy to help them out. As you can see here, the Sheriff's Office didn't hold back and stepped up to the plate. You can see the entire video on the Yuma County Facebook or the Yuma County Sheriff's Office Facebook pages. We'd like to thank you for joining us for this county line. If you'd like to watch past episodes, log on to yumacountyaz.gov/VOD. And don't forget, you can join us live on Facebook. We'll see you next time.
Millions of times. By the same person. All right.
The sheriff.
Yeah, the sheriff department does it. You got a lot of traffic.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is.
All right, the next item in the agenda is the consent calendar. The following items listed under the consent agenda will be considered as a group and acted upon by one motion with no separate discussion unless a board member so requests. In that event, the item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate discussion and action. Does anybody want to pull any items?
I think it was number 12.
Okay, 12. I'll pull 7 and 10.
Number 22.
22? Oh, this is going to be one of those, huh?
No.
Any more? No. One of those where we have a lot of consent items being pulled, not one of your kind of consent items. All right.
You would pull item 19 as well to be amended?
Okay. 7, 10, 12, 19, and 22. Is that right? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to approve all consent items except 7, 10, 12, 19, and 22.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve all consent items excluding 7, 10, 12, 19, and 22. All right, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. All right, I pulled item number 7. The item is in reference to a unanimous consent of the Board of Supervisors to authorize the transfer of 2006 GMC Cannon. It's a vehicle to the town of Welton for the amount of $1,500 pursuant to Arizona revised statutes. Now, the question is, by transfer, you mean sell, right? So it's not just the transfer, it's a sale, because I saw that there's a process to be followed, and you guys followed the process. There was a minimum bid amount, and the minimum bid was from Welton, and it was for $1,500, and that's what they're getting it for, right? It's not, we're selling it to them.
Yes,
Right?
we're selling
that-
it to them for $1,500.
Ooh, okay. Does anybody have any questions? No? All right, then, fine. I'll entertain a motion to approve the item as listed.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second to approve the item as presented. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion carries. On item number 10, I also asked to pull this item. This is the action to distribute $11,454.52 in community program funding from the Quechan Indian Tribe, Fort Yuma, to the Healing Journey and Campesinos Sin Fronteras in equal amounts of $5,727.26. Now, I understand that there is a representative from the Quechan Tribe here. Virgil?
Virgil.
Yes, Virgil Smith. Would you please come forward, and I know that Emma is here for, Campesinos Sin Fronteras. Anybody here from the Healing Journey? There you go, he's behind her. So just, Mr. Virgil, would you come forth here? We're going to make a motion and, just a little bit of a bit of an explanation. Every year, is it once or twice a year? We get a letter from the Quechan Indian Tribe that they're going to distribute a certain amount of funds that become available for community use. And they give us the privilege, and I consider it a privilege, to find qualified organizations that will work with, in this particular case, it was juveniles. And so we chose those two. We think they're doing a great job, and we wanted to make sure that everybody knew that this was something that the Quechan Tribe has allowed us to do. So would you like to say anything, or just present?
Yeah.
All right, well then, let's go over there and have, we should have something, at least like a check or something to present. Can I have the Campesinos Sin Frontera representative and the Healing Journey representative up here for a picture? I think that's the minimum we could do for the Quechan Tribe, to show that, I'll take this and make it like a check. Remember, you gotta give it back. All right, so you guys hold this.
Oh, okay.
Don't focus on the check. Oh, it's a black check. Are you sure? Yes. All right. Oh, thank you very much. Thanks for the explanation, and thanks for coming. Thank you. I want that check back. It's blank. All right, now. The next item, we did approve that, right? Okay. I've seen a moment right there. Did we lose one? It was too overtaken by emotion. He had to go out. He's coming back.
Not yet.
We haven't voted?
No.
Did we vote to give him the funds?
Well,
We're gonna have to do this again. Oh, Virgil left. I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 10 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, just give me a second. There's been a motion and a second to approve item number 10 as presented. Any discussion? Oh, no discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That was a quick move. The recipients and Virgil left. All right. Item number 12. It's to acknowledge the receipt of $97,108.48. It's a donation from the Ruth E. Miller Trust to the Free Library District. We also have item B, which is to adopt budget amendment resolution number 1907 to increase budget authority by $97,109. And I know Supervisor McLeod that it's your way to acknowledge the donation, right?
Yes, to acknowledge the Ruth E. Miller Trust.
Donation to
Thank
the
you for their
library.
donation to the library. And with that, Mr. Chairman, move to approve.
Motion to approve item number 12 as presented. Any, is there a second? Yeah, there's a motion and a second. Any discussion on the item? If no discussion, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Then we'll move on to item number 19, which is Arizona at Work, Yuma County. The Yuma County Workforce Development Board, operated by the Arizona at Work, request the Yuma County Board of Supervisors reappoint members Dave McDowell, Gilbert Gonzalez, Geoff Nance, Ann Powell, Steve Miller, Tom Tyree, Magnolia Alonso, and Judith Castro to a 3-year term on the local workforce development that will expire on June 13, 2021. Is there something in there that
Put
you?
in that.
Oh, Magnolia. This was the amendment that you were talking about, to amend it. So we are removing Magnolia Alonso from the list?
Yes.
Because she didn't want to be reappointed? She didn't like the pay? She didn't like the hours? Oh, all right.
I think I'll leave it.
Strike that from the record. All right, so the amendment to this, then here's how we're gonna do this. We're going to amend the motion first. So we're going to have a motion that doesn't have Magnolia Alonso on it, right? So it's an amended motion. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, just clarification, Pat Ray with Arizona at Work. Magnolia was to be renewed. However, she took a position with Kofa High School and is no longer a Title II adult ed provider for South County. And so that's why you had number 20, which is William Regenhart, who is replacing her on the board. But we didn't catch it until we saw it already on here. So I just wanted to make sure.
All right, so we're losing Magnolia and we're replacing him with item number 20, which has already been approved. So technically speaking, we're just sort of cleaning up.
Yeah, I just didn't want any misunderstanding if you saw the two that were.
All right, okay, good. So we do have a representative. Yes. It was just a change. Now, for legal, how do you want us to do this? Just a motion without Magnolia Alonso in it, or do you want us to amend the current item as presented?
Mr. Chairman, you can just make a motion without
Alonso.
Miss.
All right, so.
But do we need to add Bill?
No, it's already added. It's already been voted on number 20. So, okay, so the motion is going to read that we go ahead and reappoint all those members excluding Magnolia Alonso. Okay, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been motion and second to approve item number 19 as amended without Magnolia Alonso in it. Any discussion? No discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pat.
All right, so we go on then to item number 22, which is for Development Services Engineering. Approve the following and authorize the Department of Development Services to advertise for bids for the Highway 95 from Avenue C3 to County 11.5 Street Chip Seal Project number 1.1803. And okay, so A would be an intergovernmental agreement between the Yuma County and the Cocopah Tribe for reimbursement for the portion of the Highway 95 Chip Seal Project construction cost, and B, the construction plans.
Mr. Chairman, that's item 23. If you go back to item
Oh, wait,
22.
I skipped it. Oh, that's already, it's already been approved, so you don't have to explain it anymore. I need some new.
Steph was throwing me for a
I
second.
heard
I'm like,
95.
You need some glasses?
Approve the improvement plans and authorize the Department of Development Services to advertise for bids, 8th Street Improvement Project, Avenue D to Avenue C. No wonder you picked it up in your district. All right, so that would be number 22. Well,
Reyes, members of the board, Frank
what's the question?
Sanchez.
Chair, I just wanted to thank staff for, all their work that they've done on this. I know there were some issues that needed to be ironed out, and I'm glad that the city of Yuma and the county, finally got it, and it's, and I'm excited. The people around there are excited too, so that's
An exciting situation.
Thank you. So with that,
Okay, although it's somewhat part of this project, the item that I read was interesting to me because it involved, a joint agreement with the Cocopa tribe, and that was pretty good too. Going back to the item before legal forces me to, any comments, any questions? Or you want to make the motion to approve the item?
with that, I'll make a motion to approve item number 22.
It's been a motion and a second. As part of the discussion here, thanks for the resurfacing of 16 Avenue B or whatever. All right. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. That takes care of all the consent items, and we'll be moving on to the action items. Action items is where the board will open each of the following items separately for discussion and action as appropriate. The first one is the Public Health Service District, and pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, we will conduct a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed revisions to the fee schedule for the Yuma County Public Health Service District. And B, we will take action to adopt resolution number 2018-26 fee schedule for the Yuma County Public Health Services District effective immediately.
Good morning, Supervisor Reyes.
Good
members of the
morning.
board. Diana Gomez, Health District Director. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions about the fee that we haven't discussed before? Now, this is a public hearing, isn't it? So I'm going to open it to the public to see if there's anybody here that wants to make a comment on the changes to the health district fees. Is there anybody in the public that would like to address the board on this item? If not, I'll go back to you, Diane.
That's to see nice round numbers.
Yes, nice round numbers. Thank you. So this was just part of the process. This is our final stage.
Yeah, well, we'll see the comments once the fees hit the public. Any comments? Any other comments? No? Then I'll entertain a motion to approve item number 1, which will be we already conducted the public hearing, will be action to adopt resolution number 2018-26, which is the fee schedule. Motion?
I'll move.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, 2 Republicans. Good. Any discussion on the item? No discussion? All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Aye. Come on. I thought you weren't going to pick it up. No, the motion passed unanimously. He was
Okay.
Maybe on too long.
all right. All those, that motion passed unanimously, okay? So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
It wasn't that bad, guys. Development Services, request for the county attorney to file an abatement action in Superior Court to enforce zoning violation case number 16-H-0165 for the property located on 14-04 Pamela de Fortuna.
Good morning, Craig Sellers, Director of Development Services. We were requested to bring this case to you for abatement. And what I wanted to do today is provide you with a couple photos of what the site conditions look like that we took last week for your consideration. Some of the case study that we have on it, the latest violation we took to the hearing officer was cited on September 23rd, 2016. It was identified that they were using the site consistent with sand and gravel and storage of equipment. December 1st, the first hearing was found the parcel in violation and imposed a $500 civil sanction. On February 2nd, the compliance hearing was held and found the site continued to be in violation, and the civil sanction has been paid by the property owner.
What does that mean? That the civil sanction has been paid, but the problem hasn't been solved? Is that what it means?
Correct. Correct. And so this is the property front. These are photos on the back. This is looking from County 14E, looking to the southeast across the property. I'm sorry, I'm hitting the wrong button here. This is looking east on the property. This is looking southeast across the property. Some more images showing some of the equipment. And so our request is for the board to request a county attorney to file an abatement action in Superior Court to enforce zoning violation case. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, was this violation a complaint, or?
Yes.
It was? Somebody complained about it?
We've received complaints, and then over the last couple, year and a half, we've received additional complaints.
Was that graffiti, or did the property owner put that on there?
I don't know.
Yeah, I saw that too. It's kind of
It appears that he's using it as a business, right?
yes.
It appears that way.
I know Craig has received several complaints, and I have too, and this has been ongoing. I thought I'd seen somewhere far back as 2012. We'd been getting some complaints on this, and it's just, I think
It just
it's
doesn't
time.
stop, huh? So the gentleman or the owners paid the civil penalties and that just simply ignore the.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, it's up to the board. I mean,
I'll
yeah,
make a
I
motion
need a
that we
motion.
approve, going ahead with the abatement action.
I'll second it.
All right, so this will be a motion to request the county attorney to file an abatement action in Superior Court to enforce zoning violation case number 16-H-0165 for the property located at 14104 Palmela de Fortuna. Would legal explain a little bit what will happen? I mean, how this will?
Mr. Chairman, our office would file a complaint asking for a court order that he abate. In other words, bring the property into compliance. If we do get the court order, then he'd be required to clean up the property. If he doesn't, we would then request a order shall cause where the judge can impose sanctions if it doesn't get abated, which could include jail time. So usually the people do abate the property if we're successful in getting the original order.
Okay, so it moves it to Superior Court where definitely more threatening actions will take place, more teeth in it. Is there
Mr. Chairman, the hearing officer, the only options they have is to place a fine on the individual up to, I believe it's $750.
Oh, I see.
And they can't do any
Enforcement action.
any further action.
Is the $750 one time, or is it? It can't be like daily, right? It's something.
The complaint can charge the violation for every day that it's in violation. So it could be multiple fines of $750.
Yeah, I remember. That must be the owner in back there. I remember. I used to read. I mean, back when this hearing officer would find someone, it would say, look, it's like $500 a day until you solve that problem. That's why I asked. I mean, it seemed to me like the limit was not 750, but yeah, it could actually run for a long time.
Right. The hearing officers recently haven't been imposing per day fines.
Right. Well, so you want to take it to Superior Court. Okay, well, if the board is willing. Okay, there's been a motion and a second to continue with the process, reluctantly so. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, continue. Okay, then item number 3 is for Development Service in the Planning and Zoning Division. It's Sierra Ridge Unit 2 subdivision. Modifications of a subdivision regulation Brian Householder of Spartan Homes and Construction Incorporated requests two modifications in the Yuma County subdivision regulations, sections 4.15B and 4.15C for the proposed Sierra Ridge Unit 2 subdivision, assessors parcels number 701-41-230 and 701-41-901, located on the northeast corner of the intersection of Avenue 12E and the alignment of County 11.5 Street. Before you start, sir, let's have the staff give us a small presentation on this, and then we'll open it up.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. Juan Dan Rubio, Senior Planner with the Planning Zone Division. As you mentioned, this is a Sierra Ridge Unit 2, a request for modifications of subdivision regulations, specifically sections 4.15B and section 4.15C of the subdivision regulations. This proposed subdivision is located in the foothills planning area in the vicinity of Avenue 12E and 36th Street. This is a case map showing the subject property. This is an aerial photography of the subject property. Modifications being requested again, section 4.15B, related to arterial roads, section lines. It is requested by the developer not to construct sidewalks and street lights along 12E in accordance with Public Works Standards number 2020 and number 3130. This is shown here where the modification is being proposed in red. Other modification is section 4.15C, major collector type roads, midsection line or section line roads that are 3 miles or less in length. It is requested by the developer not to construct road improvements along County 11.5 Street in accordance with Public Works Standards number 2030 and number 3120. And this is the location of that modification. Planning Commission recommendation is approval of both modifications. And that concludes staff's presentation on this proposed subdivision modifications. Staff is recommending, I apologize, staff is recommending approval of the modification along County 11.5 Street, specifically modification to 4.15C, major collector type roads, and denial of modification of section 4.15B, arterial roads along 12E for the sidewalks and street lights.
Okay, so go ahead. The staff is recommending approval of one and denial of the other one?
That
And the
is correct,
commission is
Chairman
recommending
Reyes.
approval of both of them. Supervisor McLeod?
And why does staff make that recommendation?
That's something that our engineer will address.
Good morning, Arturo Alvarez, Engineering Division. The subdivision to the north, which is Sierra Ridge number 1, was approved, I think, back in 2005. We used to have an old set of regulations. The new regulations came to effect in 2008, I believe, which required an arterial streets, require streetlights, and also sidewalks.
Okay.
And we've been consistently requiring them to provide especially sidewalks on arterial streets.
Yeah, you're recommending not to construct sidewalks?
No, we're recommending for them to, for the applicant to construct sidewalks and streetlights along 12E.
I thought you just said not along
I wasn't
11.5.
here.
We recommended an approval.
There's two different sites.
I believe there's two modifications. One of them is not to improve County 11.25 Street, 11.5 Street, which is on the south side, and we concur with the developer. There's no alignment, there's no street improvements along either way, west or east side of subject property. So we're okay with the engineer.
Well, it's an alignment only, not a roadway.
Yeah. On 12E, there's an existing road there right now, but there's no sidewalks.
Or streetlights.
Or streetlights, yes.
Neither north nor south?
No. And like I said, Sierra Ridge number 1 was approved with the old set of standards, which didn't require streetlights and sidewalks.
And south was the same?
The Sierra Ridge number 2, on the south side, it's an older subdivision, and it was not required.
No street lights, no sidewalks, right? Okay.
No, I'm just gonna ask, is there a cost estimate attached to this? Do you have any idea how much that would be? I mean,
Roughly for sidewalks, I believe we've been getting estimates around anywhere from $4 to $6 a square foot.
how many feet are there?
Excuse me?
How many feet? How many feet?
You have the length, site, the tear map?
How long is it?
Around 400 feet.
400 feet?
Yes.
And the streetlights, it will require how many? 5, 4?
That will be up to the developer to get in
APS?
contact with APS, yes. On the streetlights, well, I mean, there's no streetlights on either side of the subdivision, but we do get complaints on as far as sidewalks. There's no sidewalks on certain streets from residents.
Well, maybe the streetlights are not as necessary.
But there's no sidewalks on either side of either subdivision, so it's just gonna be sitting out there by itself, one set of sidewalks.
Mr. Chair.
Sure. We'll get into it, yeah.
With the lights, we would have to form a district? Is that?
No.
No.
Who pay for the electricity?
Once they're installed, who pays for the electricity, streetlight?
That's a district, so.
Is it
that's a-
missing?
You would have to form a district to put the streetlights in?
I'm not
Not to put them in,
I'm not
that's
familiar
right
with
for the
as far as the
Well, that's what I
payment of
mean.
the streetlights, but the developer will be responsible as far as getting will be having the cost to install the streetlights, whatever.
Well, no, the cost is not an issue. We know the developer will be responsible. The issue is who pays for it after.
I'm assuming improvement district would be.
Had to be formed, that's the thing, right? And we would have to implement it. It would have to be in the books. Okay, so the sidewalks, go ahead.
Will there be, I assume there's sidewalks and streetlights in the interior of the subdivision?
As under the new regs, it's not required to provide because of the square footage of the lots that exceeds, I believe, 10,000 square feet. It's not required to provide sidewalks.
Oh, really?
Can you go back to the picture, where it showed the view above and below it? The subdivisions or the.
That one?
Here. So this would be totally set aside from the rest of the area. We're making them put in sidewalks and streetlights, and there's nothing north or south of.
No, I get it. I mean, what we're saying is, look, this would actually be, well, not incompatible. You know, it's compared to the rest of the area there. This would have new requirements that weren't there when they did the first one. And what they want to do is they want to make it consistent with the other ones. And the issues we get to deal with all the time is people later on complain that why wasn't there any sidewalks built and why wasn't there any lights put in there when they were developing the subdivision. So here's one of those situations where, the rest of it doesn't look that way, but then, the new area, it's under new regulations. And the staff is just simply saying, look, you guys have new regulations and we've been consistently asking everybody else to do this. And in this particular case, we're okay with, not providing improvements in an area that leads to nowhere, but the sidewalks and the streetlights are something that's in the books and, everybody's being asked to do it. And if you guys are willing, you need to make an exception to that. And the supervisor from that district, gets the heavy load here.
Well, up to me to make a motion?
Yes, it's up to you to make a motion.
We want to hear from the.
Oh, well, unless,
the developer?
Okay, well, all right, let's listen to the developer. Remember, if you're ahead, you quit.
Householder, just to reiterate about the discussion, on Avenue 12E, when the phase one and which is now going to be phase two is proposed, I put in the full half width of 12E. It was only half as wide, so I paid to construct that, and all the vertical curbs on 12E were installed, okay, all the way down to the County 11.5 alignment. And there's no power on that side of the street for streetlights. And it would be the only I think there probably maybe one or two streetlights on that whole, basically that whole region that you see on the entire screen. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense to do it. And so there's, a few other factors that you mentioned today that I hadn't even thought about forming a district that comes into play too. So the sidewalks, I think we're all on the same page with that. The sidewalks are nowhere. In phase one, what's not shown on the aerial is from the vertical curb to the houses that abut Avenue 12E, there's a slope or an incline from the house, from the wall down to the road. So if the county ever wanted to go in there and construct that, they'd have to basically tear that whole slope out and regrade it to get the sidewalks put in. And then to the south of 11 and a half, there's not a whole lot of space between the existing homes, which is the walls that abut Avenue 12E south of 11 and a half. And that actually is a runoff for the road, which is serves a retention for water. So it doesn't make any sense to install sidewalks right there either. So,
Any questions? I understand. I mean, I think I do. It just, the area there, this is a little different for me because I'd be remiss in a new subdivision that's starting in a new area to actually even consider, not having the sidewalks or not having the streetlights, because I think that's been a common complaint that we deal with all the time. And even when it gets down to when the city wants to annex, I mean, they're always looking at areas like that and saying, well, why didn't you put in the sidewalks? Why didn't you put the streetlights? Now we have to, create the district later on. It's really difficult not to see that as time goes by, the regulations keep changing to adapt to the current conditions. But this one here is different to me because I guess the nature of the whole area down there, it's already been set, I think. And this is like infill. This is the infill to me. If there was an example of infill, this would be it. I mean, it's in the middle of everything, and it would be out of context to start putting in new requirements on an area that it would just make the neighbors be envious.
Well,
all right. Any questions for? No. Thank you.
What's your opinion on south of 11 and a half on the west side?
In terms of what
develops?
Oh, you mean over here?
Uh-huh.
Well, that is, I think, not surrounded by everything. That is an open area. I think that when that one comes in, we'll look at it and go like, okay, look, I mean, the only thing that concerns me is whether that width of that street, Avenue 12E, will continue all the way down to the edge. I think it will.
You're talking
Whenever that develops.
half-mile developments going up.
that's state property
Yeah.
right now.
I mean, yeah. It'll take some time for that to ever become.
It was actually sold at auction to a developer, and then the economy tanked, and they ended up repossessing
Possessing it,
foreclosing
yeah.
on the property.
No, I think we're doing infill here. I mean, we have to
Yeah,
look at it in
I
categories.
just was curious what you thought.
All right, I think we've heard enough, or maybe we think we heard enough. And Supervisor Simmons, you were about to make a motion.
Make a motion that we approve the request for the modifications. I don't like doing that because we've changed the zoning, but it would seem to fit better keeping the continuity with, I mean, you got one area we're requiring to put a sidewalk, which is probably what, 2 blocks along the road, and then there's nothing after that on either side, so.
All right, so your motion is to go ahead and approve the two modifications
Yes.
as presented.
As recommended by
As recommended
planning and
by
zoning.
Yes.
planning and zoning, yes. Is there a second?
You want
You need a
the
second.
sidewalk or you don't want the sidewalk?
You don't want the
no,
sidewalk.
Oh.
And the lights either, because like I said, we're gonna have to do an improvement district, and
I'll second.
Right, there's a motion and a second to approve the modifications, modifications 1 and 2 was presented. Is there any more discussion on the item?
Just a comment on that.
Comment? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, let know staff that usually I believe when it's only one owner, developer, it's a lot easier to do improvement districts.
definitely.
So just to consider in the future.
And
Tell you what.
make one more statement too. I don't like going against staff, because I understand where they're coming from, but I think this is kind of one of those unusual ones.
Yeah, well, it's kind of those situations where I think staff is boxed in. I mean, you know, they got regulations to follow, and they're not allowed to do that. They're just simply saying, look, this is the regulation, and we're recommending, you know, common sense, you know, dictates that, you know, they're going to be put in a situation where somebody else is going to say, well, you did it for so and so. So they have to be a little more careful than that. We're normally accustomed to that.
I just have a comment.
Sure.
If I may, you know, when you read this, it's like, no, you know, when you're looking at it,
Yeah,
and
I mean,
with
it's
the
in here.
comments that we've made, in this particular case, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think so myself. Is there any other discussion on this item? If not, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. We'll move on to item number 4, which is for county administration. It's to authorize Yuma County to participate in the class action lawsuit to recover additional payments, additional sums of payment in lieu of taxes, funds, PILT Act for fiscal years 2015, 2016, 2017. This is case number 17-739C and 17-1991C, which have been consolidated. Susan?
Yes, let me get to
Or
that.
legal, or Paul, or who's going to take this on? He looks like he's
Can
trying
just-
to, and then he backs up.
We
and then he goes-
can, we can elaborate if you like, but Kane County, Utah filed a lawsuit and has been authorized to have a class action as part of the claim of underpayment of payments in lieu of taxes for the last 3 fiscal years, 2015, 16, and 17. And so this is to allow the board to consider whether we want to join in that class action lawsuit. The representative amount for us, should we prevail, or should the class action prevail, is approximately $93,000.
Now, if you're a member of a class action, well, if a class action has been, if it's already been determined it's a class action lawsuit, is there any particular need? Are we adding anything to the lawsuit? Are we, you know, does it give it strength? Does it?
We have to join, or we don't get any benefit from it. If you don't join it, you don't reap the benefits of whatever.
I thought there was a point where a class action lawsuit, you know, it's done in behalf of a class. And in that, at some particular point when a decision is made, anyone that belongs to that class can participate at the end. Is that not true?
That's not true in this case. This is, you have to join it in order to be eligible for the reimbursement.
All right, well, I guess that's an answer that I wasn't totally expecting, but, I mean, I guess you don't win if you don't buy a ticket, right?
Oh, we have our own capable attorneys.
You guys, you know, is there any expected legal work from this?
No, the $93,000 that I mentioned is net of any attorney's fees that's happening at the class action level. We could not join and have our own representation of our own county, but then we'd have to pay the attorney fees of our own.
I don't think that's not smart. I mean, the question is, you know, sometimes you join, and then when you join, you sort of submit like your take on it or something. I don't remember the legal word. Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. But in this case, we're not submitting a friend of the court type, a friend of the plaintiff or whatever. We're not.
Mr. Chairman, no, we're not.
Okay, good. So as long as it doesn't mean we get our attorneys involved in some sort of litigation that happens in Washington and you have to fly out there and do a lot of stuff, we're not looking at that, right?
No, if we did not join the class and you wanted to follow your own lawsuit, then you would have your own representation for the matter.
All right. Any other questions on this? I mean, it seems pretty simple, straightforward. We join the class action lawsuit, and we may end up at the right side of a settlement. All right. Anybody wants to make the motion? I guess we're not lawsuit happy.
I'll move.
Okay. So there's a motion to join the class action lawsuit. Is there a second?
Second.
2 Democrats, right? Yeah, I want to do that because I don't want my Republican friends to believe I don't notice anything, right? On one side or the other. All right, there's been a motion, a second to join the lawsuit. Any discussion on this item? No discussion on the item. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That was not a very enthusiastic aye, but we'll move on. It moves us to the next item, which is also for the county administrator, is to report to the Board of Supervisors regarding the performance contracting agreement with Siemens Industry, Inc., and direct staff to process the payment for the investment grade energy audit in the amount of $110,000 as approved on August the 7th, 2017. Okay, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me, members of the board. Paul Melcher, Deputy County Administrator. I'd also like to introduce for you David Hillen, the Facilities Management Director. He will be available to answer any of the more technical questions related to equipment specific that I won't be able to answer. As you stated, Mr. Chairman, this is a summary of the performance contracting project that we've been working on with Siemens. I've split the presentation into two parts this morning, one to summarize how the agreement and the discussion began, and then to summarize at the end staff recommendations to the Board of Supervisors. Just to refresh the board's memory, this whole process began on August 7th, 2017, with the board agreeing to undertake the investment grade audit with Siemens, the purpose of which was determine and make an assessment of identified buildings within the county to determine what facility improvement measures might be available to improve energy savings. Upon report back to the board in December 2017, we made the determination and recommendation to the board at that time that based on the audit findings, that there were the preliminary basis for an agreement existed, and we wanted to take a more in-depth look at it to see how we could come up with, as a staff, to make a presentation to the board regarding facility improvement measures that might be able to be paid for through the energy savings via an agreement. So roughly from January through May, approximately 5 months, staff went through the more technical aspects of the agreement and then the findings of Siemens through the audit process to be able to come up in June to make a final recommendation to the board and then get this on the Board of Supervisors agenda for your review. In general, the project overview looked like this. Based on the findings of the audit, which is the financially viable or not viable portion of this, was to understand that if the facility measures were available, would the county save any money? We made the preliminary determination and recommendation to the board then in December to go through and make a determination if we should implement a project or not. And so now we're at the cost covered and fee due question in relation to the project overview. In terms of the overall project objectives, our primary three were this: to make sure that if we had a project that we were bringing to the board, that it was financially neutral, which meant we expected the energy savings from the facility improvement measures to be able to cover the cost of any debt that we were able to service. The other aspects, we wanted to make sure that whatever we were proposing to the board met with the Yuma County strategic plan in relation to energy savings. We also wanted to make sure that we were replacing those prioritized systems that were either at the end or beyond their useful life. The most common ones that we had included at that portion were the rooftop units and chiller units. The other aspect of that was we had lighting retrofits, which carried the bulk of the rest of the recommendations for facility improvements. We did also have some other secondary objectives, which we did find of value, but again, the top three were the primary ones for us to undertake the review of this project. We split the building review into two portions here. And the general fund buildings are on the left with the special revenue fund on the right. We eventually split out the buildings in consideration of the fact that the special revenue funds had to stand on their own in relation to their ability to service debt. We knew that there were special considerations for each one of those districts, and we didn't want to look at this as a whole project. We wanted to make sure that each district was able to fund its portion of any facility improvement measures. In terms of the results, we have a specific recommendations to the board. The first one is to not proceed with a performance contract agreement. The reasons for this recommendation are as follows. Again, the lighting retrofits, which comprise the bulk of the project, while they would save the county energy, weren't our highest priority. In relation to that, we figured that in terms of a recommendation to the board, that would also require that we would incur additional debt for lighting retrofits. We are also looking at the fact that this tied us into a 15-year agreement with Siemens, and there are several factors underneath that agreement which might change, which could impact our ability in terms of what we would have to repay in terms of debt service, the first one being building use. The way that the agreement was established is that if you had a significant change in the building use, we were expected to experience certain savings based on our changes to that building. And if we change that use, then those expectations would no longer be, they'd be considered null and void. We're also looking at the aspects that technology is emerging related to energy savings on a consistent basis. We thought if we tied ourselves into a 15 years, we might not be able to take advantage of future emerging technology related to energy savings. And the last portion of this is that the contract was also predicated on tying in APS rate improvements for over 15 years. We thought that based on the fact that even at this point, APS rates have been reduced, we thought tying the county into a 15-year debt service based on those rates would be very tough, particularly if we had to come back and pay some of those offsets if the rates didn't increase as expected. The other aspect of this which made the project to us very difficult to manage was, if you take a look at the special revenue districts, all of them except for the health district would have to contribute additional funds from their operations in order to offset the facility improvement measures that were recommended. Considering the work that we've done in making sure that all the fund balances are situated at appropriate levels, and then taking into consideration any future budget considerations for these funds, we wanted to exclude the special revenue funds from consideration. Now, while we're not recommending to enter into an agreement, we also, though, are recommending that we reimburse Siemens the $110,000 for the investment grade energy audit. The foundation for this recommendation is that even though overall the project didn't turn out as beneficial as we wanted to, we did learn several aspects from this project, and we have a great foundation of information moving forward. The first one is we have very specific and detailed information related to the building use and operations, hours of operations, energy use, and projected energy savings from the facilities improvement measures. We also have a very complete and detailed list of those facility improvement measures, including the type and the number of replacement equipment numbers. So if we do choose to move forward and have any of these projects on our own, we already have all of that in place. And the final aspect of it is all of those facility improvement measures have identified savings for each one. So as we move forward and look at these on an individual basis, we'll be able to forecast energy savings and tie that into our next steps that we're recommending for the board. The first aspect of this is to create a countywide energy policy. So you can see again the other aspect of that. In support of having an energy policy which would promote the reduction of energy use, we'd also implement some of the best facility improvement measures that showed the best return on the objective, and also support that countywide energy policy. The other component that we're looking at is some solar power generation via parking structures. So we could have a two-pronged approach at reducing energy and saving costs, reducing our energy use and producing some of our own. The other component that we want to look at in terms of the next steps is the replacement of equipment itself. We know that based on the information that we received as part of the investment audit, we have a prioritized list of rooftop units that we need to have replaced in the next 10 years. We split that up into the library district, into the general fund, because the library district, while it has a lot of new buildings, a lot of those rooftop unit replacements are going to come due pretty soon, because they're looking at around 15 years to 20 years in their life cycles already. We know that it's not an immediate need. However, we're looking at forecasting that in combination with the general fund to be able to go out through the regular budget and not have to incur any additional debt to make those replacements. And finally, the facilities management has done a great job in getting the HVAC system for the adult detention center to make sure that it keeps working as necessary. However, we know that there's a long-term strategy there that has to be implemented, which would include an entire review of the HVAC system, not just looking at a chiller replacement in order to achieve energy efficiencies. So if you look at that, we have a two-pronged effort where we're looking at reducing energy, cutting costs, but also looking at our existing budget in order to make the necessary equipment replacement to keep the facilities cooled. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions? Comments? It didn't work out as I thought. I mean, your whole presentation, just can be narrowed down to, look, it didn't produce the kind of savings we were hoping, and the cost to keep monitoring was too high, as opposed to the savings that we could effectuate. And they gave us pretty much a guide system to follow in terms of achieving some of those savings on our own. So we're paying $110,000 for the advice and the review and the analysis.
Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
And isn't the air conditioning system at the detention center, I think that's on our list, right? That we'll
The
be
tower?
considering later?
The cooling tower?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor McLeod, it's on our list specifically to start that discussion about exactly what needs to be done overall to the facility. A complete review and assessment of the HVAC system, and Dave, you can chime in if I forget anything. It would even include looking at the ductwork, other components. Should the chiller be on the roof? Should it be on the floor? What size chiller should it be? How should it all be incorporated into the system? So that's why that is on our radar, because it wasn't just as simple as we know that the chiller is old and needs to be replaced, but the detention center hasn't been meeting its temperature set points since it opened and with the existing system. So there needs to be something else done to that.
All right. Any other comments? If not, I'll entertain a motion. We're a reluctant board this morning, but okay, item number 5.
I'll go ahead and move to direct staff to process a payment for the investment grade energy audit in the amount of $110,000.
I'll second it.
And motion and second to approve item 5 as presented. Any more discussion? No? All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. And we move to item number 6, which is to conduct a public hearing to receive comments on the proposed revision to resolution number 2012-19, fee schedule for the County Board of Supervisors, County Administration. And B, action to adopt and authorize the chairman to sign resolution 2018-14, adopting the revisions to said fee schedule and superseding all previously adopted fee schedules effective immediately. Paul?
Mr. Chairman, I've just made myself available if you have any questions related to the fee schedule. I know that in a prior meeting, it was described this was some cleanup to get rid of some outdated fees, but also to make sure that we had the fees delineated and specified and made current. There was very few changes to it, but it was just a small cleanup for the overall fees.
Just as a comment, things like removing cassette, recordings, or that's yeah, it's pretty obvious that we just needed to update a lot of the terminology and a lot of the fee schedules. Let me open it to the public. This calls for a public hearing, so I'm hereby opening up the County Board of Supervisors, County Administration fee schedule to a public hearing. Is there anyone here in the public that would like to address the board on this particular issue? If not, I'll bring it back to the board for their decision. I'll entertain a motion to approve and adopt and authorize the chairman to sign resolution number 2018-14 and adopt the revisions to the fee schedule, superseding all previously adopted fee schedules, effective immediately. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second to approve item number 7 as presented and as stated before. Anybody, any comments? No.
Number 6.
Oh, number 6. Jesus. Number 6, presented. Any discussion on this item? No discussion on the item. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. I'll try to keep the numbers straight. Number 7, approve and authorize the chairman to sign an economic development incentive agreement with Gourmet Garden in an amount not to exceed $89,000 to commence upon date of execution by both parties and terminate when parties mutually provide for termination in writing, or 6 years from the effective date, whichever comes first. Who's coming up?
It's fairly straightforward. Did you have a presentation? So this is the culmination of the authorization that the board had given to me to negotiate an agreement with Gourmet Garden to produce jobs, up to 89 jobs in Yuma County, and we would reimburse up to $1,000 per job created based on performance metrics.
Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Right.
Just like to point out for the public, there's no money changing hands until performance measures are met. So it's not just a handout up front. They have to meet the performance measures as outlined in the agreement. So I think it'll be good. It's great that they're coming here. I know GYEDC worked on it for 5-6 years. It was coming, then it wasn't. It was coming, then it wasn't. And they finally got it all worked out. And congratulations to them for landing a beautiful project.
Okay, does that come with the motion?
That comes with a motion, Mr. Chairman, to approve.
Second.
Been motion and second to approve item number 7 as presented. Any more discussion on the item? No more discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. And we'll go to item number 8, which is finance. And it's pursuant to Arizona revised statutes, we will conduct a public hearing to receive comments on authorizing the county to secure obligations which are to be secured by a pledge of revenues from excise taxes the county now or hereafter levies, except for any taxes hereafter levied for an inconsistent purpose, in the estimated dollar amount of $5,215,687, with total estimated financing costs not to exceed $6,414,068. $414,068, including interest to finance such cost. Mark Reeder will give a PowerPoint presentation, but we'll begin with you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Serena Gallegos,
Serena
Deputy
Gallegos.
CFO. I'm here to introduce Mr. Mark Reeder, who will be conducting a presentation regarding the issues.
All right, Mark, you're up.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Mark Reeder with Stiefel, and the board's been through this process before under Arizona revised statutes 11-391. If the county is going to consider issuing bonds or obligations for capital improvement projects, which we're going to discuss in a moment, you're required to have a public hearing. I've got 3 or 4 slides here to help in that regard. Our public hearing needs to outline the need for the project, the need to use long-term financing to accomplish the project, and any other available options to accomplish the project. That's under the statute that we're complying with this morning. As you know, going through the budget process, the county's identified about $5.2 million or so in necessary capital improvements for this budget year. This is the list I got from the finance department that I'm sure looks very familiar to you, that adds up to about $5.2 million. When we do financings for counties, as you know, we have a variety of options under the statute. So these really are the 4. We can obviously pay cash for our capital improvement projects. We can issue excise tax revenue obligations, which is what's being considered this afternoon, in which you pledge your local sales tax. I'll show you that here in a moment. You could obviously go out for a general obligation bond election and increase property taxes. I don't think that's an option that the board wants to consider. Or we can do a more expensive lease purchase option. So the recommendation is to go with option number 2, as we have done in the past for the county. This slide and the next slide kind of outlines that we're going to proceed with a private placement. We're not going to do a more expensive bond transaction because the size is not all that large, and we're going to amortize the bonds over 10 years. So that's very much in the sweet spot of the local and the national financial institutions that we're going to bid the financing out. So we're going to do a private placement here shortly and receive bids accordingly. This is kind of a list of interest rates. Down at the bottom is what we did for the county last year. Got you 2% money last year, 237 money as you recall. Almost free money. Rates, as you know, the Federal Reserve is tapping the brakes out there. Nothing significant, but rates are up, 50 basis points, 0.5% since then. My guess is, and we're going to bid this out, I'm going to share with you in a moment, we're going to receive a lot of interest in your county. I'm praying and hoping that we're going to get you in the 2% category. High 2% money is my guess. Bear with me. And I wanted to show you here some recent bids that we got from other municipal jurisdictions around the state. and the length of their amortization. So feeling all in all pretty good about the interest rate environment, and this financing for Yuma County, I believe, will be very well received by the bidders. As mentioned, the county will, like it had in the past, will pledge your local sales tax revenues. Went back and did a nice history there with staff, and you can see that your local TPT or sales tax has been doing pretty good over the years. We showed you a 5-year history. This year budgeted at almost $12.7 million. That $12.7 million in column 2 will be pledged towards the repayment of the obligations, along with your 13 and 17. We're thinking that your annual debt service will probably be $595 to low 600s. That's a very conservative number for purposes of the public hearing over here in your total estimated debt service. And then the far right-hand column shows the investor that for every dollar of debt service the county has, you have $9 in revenues to cover it. So that's also considered very, very strong. As far as our calendar, we're going to submit the RFPs later this week. We're going to receive the bids on or around August 14th. We'll be back in front of you on August 20th with the results of those bids and a recommendation, and we'll close the financing in the early part of September. So, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my presentation. Glad to entertain any questions of the board.
Any questions from the board? No questions from the board. Let me open it to the public. I'm hereby opening item number 8 to conduct the public hearing to receive comments and authorize the county to secure obligations. This is your opportunity as a public to address the board and any issues that you may have. Is there anyone here that wants to address the board on this particular issue? If not, I'll bring it back to the board for their decision. Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Any comments? No? All right, then, I just want to make a comment. We pride ourselves for keeping our obligations very low for a long time and having the availability, having it be available to us as a tool to solve some problems at a point where we felt that it was, pertinent to do so. This, I don't particularly like it. I like to keep it open. I like to pay as much as we can with cash and save as much as we can before we do the projects. But projects like the building, on the other side of the street are projects that have been planned for a long time. And I think that, the necessity of having a place to conduct meetings that is a little more appropriate than the one we've had for the last 20 years it's getting to a point now that we've got to make a decision. And in part, that is one. The other ones, and you see the list of projects, and there are obviously projects that need to be addressed relatively soon, and the amount of money that needs to be done, it's substantial. So I'd say that if there was a point in time where you can tap into that ability to be able to finance something, given the current interest rates, is now. So I'll entertain a motion from board members to go ahead and approve proceeding with this particular process.
It's just a public hearing?
Yeah, I closed the public hearing when I said I turned it back to the board. I thought I did. So just in case, I'm closing the public hearing, no more comments. Bring it back to the board for the motion. Yeah, I need a motion, I think. Yes. Or is this just a public hearing?
Public hearing.
That's it. We don't need a motion from the board? I tell you that dental work from last weekend is really coming up. All right. Let's move on then. We've had our public hearing. All right. Thank you very much. And we're going to move on to the easy items, the planning and zoning agenda items.
Yeah.
Full legal descriptions of property sites for all rezoning cases. Thank you for bringing that up. I was going to wait for you guys to make a motion. Full legal description of property sites to all rezoning cases available for public review at the Yuma County Board of Supervisors office. These are expedited rezoning and public hearings. These items will be, I guess they're happy, huh? You close the door. Close the door.
It's 100.
Before the celebration overtakes the building. These items will be open as a group for public hearings and acted upon by one motion to adopt a recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Commission, except for any item that is removed by a board member for separate consideration. That item will be discussed and acted upon separately following actions on expedited items. The first one is Development Service Planning and Zoning, and it will be rezoning case number 1807, John A. Wheel, trustee of Desert Paradise Partnerships, trust number 09-19-1998, request the rezoning of the south 48 gross acres of parcel 86 gross acres in size from rural area 40-acre minimum to rural area 10-acre minimum. The assessor's parcel is number 186-22-005 and is located on the northeast corner of the alignments of Avenue 37 E and County 8th Street in Welton, Arizona. There will be a PowerPoint presentation by staff. Proceed. It's an expedited one, right? So it's only if we wanted to. We normally don't want PowerPoint presentations, but in some particular cases we may. Is there a need for a PowerPoint presentation, guys? Or
I
are
have
you
a
okay?
question on the RA10, is what they're wanting to go to.
Yes.
What does that require as far as buildings? I mean, is that going, can it be trailers? Can it be site, is it site built?
What does it allow? It basically,
Mr. Chairman, the RA10 zoning, it's an agriculture zoning that allows site-built homes, manufactured homes.
you can have one or the other.
One per 10 acres?
Yeah, one per 10 acres.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm gonna open it to the public. It's a public hearing. So is anybody here in the public that would like to address the board on this particular item? If not, then I'll bring it back to the board for their decision. This is a expedited rezoning, so I'll entertain a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion that we do not approve it.
Do not approve it?
Do not approve it.
The
I have
motion-
heard from probably every landowner and homeowner within a mile or more of that area. They're concerned not in site built, mobiles getting put in there. And there's a lot of high-end homes in that area and.
Yeah, I think we better have the presentation if this is going to be, but your motion would have been no, right?
No.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Chairman.
I'm gonna wait, hold on a minute, just let me back up a little bit. I do have a motion on the floor. It will die because of a lack of second, so we need to either pull that motion back so we can have the full presentation.
Pull it back.
Pull in the back, so we'll have the full presentation and open up to the public, because I saw somebody stood up. Okay, so go ahead and give us some sense of what we're looking at right now. See, the purpose of the expedited rezoning is normally when there isn't any controversy, when there isn't any notices or, people writing letters in opposition.
And there hasn't been any?
Not according to the case planner, no.
And so, you see, that's why we take those, that quickly. If it's some controversy or if there's a difference, and then we'll take it in and just get the hearing. Yeah, I didn't expect that either, so go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Fernando Villegas, Senior Planning, presenting rezoning case 1807 for Javier Barraza. This is a request to rezone 40 acres of a parcel 86 gross acres in size from rural area 40 to rural area 10. The owner wants to rezone just the south portion of the property to create 4 new parcels, and the north side will remain RA 40. The applicant, all the adjacent parcels are shown RA 10, RA 40, to the west, north, south. They all have the same zoning, RA 10 or RA 40. And the applicant is proposing an easement to access the property to the north, and they will create 4 new parcels on the south side, 10 acres in size. We have some aerial image of the subject property, adjacent parcels.
Go back, please.
Sure.
And what type of homes are these that are next to it? Are they
They're all site
site-built?
built. They're all site built.
Those are 10-acre parcels, site built, zone RA 10. And yes, site built homes and manufactured homes are allowed to the west and south.
And the piece in the north there that's cut out, is that a?
Oh, yeah, that's
on the bottom, yeah.
That's a separate
That's for
parcel.
that.
Right.
Mhm.
This is the road looking northwest,
Interesting piece.
looking north at the subject property. another property. I'm sorry, another picture looking west at the southern eastman. I'm sorry. MCAS and Walter Irrigation District support the request. Assessor's Office. And here we have the performance conditions. Within 60 days, they have to submit the waiver, the recorded military training route disclosure statement, recorded an infrastructure disclosure statement, and within 60 days, the second performance condition, within 180 days of approval by the board of supervisors. Prior to splitting the property, the owner needs to improve any ingress egress easement shown on Exhibit 8 as an all-weather access built road for emergency vehicle service pursuant to Section 503 and Appendix D of the 2003 International Fire Code in accordance with the current policy and standards. Mr. Chairman, that concludes the staff's presentation.
You don't have.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Supervisor McLeod.
I have a problem with proceeding with this.
In
You know, it's unexpedited.
Mm-hmm.
Is the applicant here?
Well, I think that what happens now, if it's an expedited amount and we're going to have a full discussion, I need to pull it off the expedited agenda and put it into a regular agenda item. Is that correct? We already have.
Mr. Chairman, even though it's labeled expedited, this is a regular agenda item.
Yeah.
If it had been placed as a consent rezoning, then the
Then we would
published
have to
notices
repost
wouldn't
it.
have been made.
Yeah.
And the only option
No,
would
no,
be to approve it.
Yeah, no, and I think that when we do expedite, it doesn't mean we do consent. It doesn't make it, you know, in other words, it is.
We don't have to have a full
Exactly.
presentation.
We don't have to, but we can. And the bottom line is we can. And we're having it now, so please come forward and give us your name and address. And I was gonna ask for a checking account number,
I was
but
gonna say, you left that checking.
I know, but he didn't, he looked too stressed out, so I didn't want to push him over the edge.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors, Chairman. My name is William Katz. I live at 2866 South 47th here in the city of Yuma. I am appearing on behalf of Mr. John Wheel, who is the applicant, as I understand it, of the Desert Paradise Partnership Trust. Mr. John Wheel also is the attorney for the trust. Mr. Wheel couldn't attend today. He's been in contact with Mr. Barraza of the planning department, and they discussed the potential that there may be questions, and that although this was originally set on the expedited calendar, that as part of the process, the Board of Supervisors may have some follow-up questions. Given that Mr. Wheel couldn't be here, and given that there are questions, on behalf of Mr. Wheel, we are requesting a continuance so that he can address the questions that have been raised and any subsequent ones. I think Mr. Wheel will be available at the next Board of Supervisor meeting.
Yeah, you know, that's what happens when we do something like expedited. It works under the assumption that everything's going to be okay, and when something happens, sometimes the petitioners are not available to respond, assuming that everything was going to go.
And Mr. Chairman, and as well as Board of Supervisors, Mr. Wheel, as I understand the email correspondence with Mr. Barraza, informed him early of Mr. Wheel's unavailability for this hearing. I know that Mr. Wheel certainly is apologetic that he couldn't be here. He wanted to be here if there were questions, but he couldn't make it, and he is sincerely apologetic. He would request a continuance.
Yes,
Mr. Chairman,
I agree.
That was going to be my position.
Mine too.
I know there's several homeowners in the area that want to.
Yeah, and I think we ought to give them a chance to come over and express their own views themselves. In that particular case, I know you represent the district, and I guess at that particular game, but there's
nothing against Supervisor Simmons, but if people want to protest, they need to do more than just tell you.
Yeah. And like I've been watching it slip by me because, like I said, I've gotten numerous calls because they've been hearing this was coming. And
okay, all right then. You know, if the board feels the same way, I'll entertain a motion to continue, and this will be just continue
to the August 6th meeting.
To the August 6th meeting.
Second.
Okay, who made the motion?
I did.
You did. Okay, so there was a motion and second to continue this item, and advise Mr. Wheel that, you know, he needs to be here and advise the landowners around there that they need to
Come
make
out.
their, yeah, come out and make their concerns known, okay? Been a motion and a second to continue the item. Is there anything legal has to say, anything? Is that okay? Okay, continue the item to the next scheduled meeting of August the 6th, I think. So, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, that one we didn't take care of, but it will be continued to the next meeting. We're gonna open up the agenda to a full presentation of rezoning cases, which will be regular public hearing items. The staff will make a full presentation of each of the following items, followed by a separate discussion in a public hearing and action by the Board of Supervisors, Development Service Planning and Zoning Division, rezoning case number 1804, Vianney Vega, agent for Sabera Holdings, LLC, requested rezoning of a parcel 10, gross acres in size from rural area 10-acre minimum to suburban site built 2-acre minimum. Assessors parcel number 755-333-006 and 007, located south of County 17th Street and Avenue A in Somerton. This item was continued from the June 4th, 2018 meeting, and we'll start with the PowerPoint presentation by the planning staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Fernando Villegas, Senior Planning, presenting rezoning case 1804. This is a request to rezone 2 parcels from rural area 10-acre minimum to suburban site built 2-acre minimum. The applicant's intent is to divide the 10 acres into 4 parcels for site built homes. The subject properties are located east of Avenue B, south of County 17th Street. Both properties are undeveloped. Parcel 1, 4, and 5 to the north are zone SSB2 and they're not developed, vacant land. These 3 parcels were recently rezoned to SSB2 with conditions by the Board of Supervisors. Parcel 2 and 3 to the north are zone RA10, and those 2 are in citrus. Parcels 755-34-001 to the northeast is zone SSB2 and is the location of a site-built home. Parcel 755-34-003 to the east is also zone SSB2 and it's in agriculture production. Parcels to the south, zone SSB2 with site-built homes. Parcel 9 to the south is zone SSB2, and parcel 8 to the south is zone as RA10 in agriculture production. And the last parcel to the west, it's an agricultural production for our zone RA10. This is a site plan submitted by the applicant, shows the proposed lot splits. The applicant is proposing an access easement on the south side of the property and irrigation easements on the north side of the property. The next slide shows an aerial picture of the subject property and adjacent properties. A picture, the next slide shows a picture looking southeast from Avenue A. And the other pictures from the other side of the property looking southwest from the northeast corner of the property. The staff received comments from MCAAs and YCAA requesting a navigation statement. And the following are performance condition and schedule for development. Performance condition number 1, the owner needs to submit a signed waiver to the Department of Development Services within 60 days to approve by the board. The second performance condition is that within 60 days, they have to submit a navigation disclosure, agricultural disclosure, infrastructure disclosure, and the schedule for development disclosure. A schedule for development prior to within 2 years of approved by the board of supervisors, the owner needs to submit a land division permit, apply for a grading permit to improve the egress easement depicted on the site plan in the dust-free condition by application of ABC covered by penetration and chip seal coat. I want to let the board know that the applicant is in opposition to penetration and chip seal, but they are in agreement with the condition except the penetration and chip seal. Also, the eastern end of the egress easement shall also contain the means for emergency vehicle turnaround. The turnaround should be in compliance with the 2003 IFC and current county policies. Condition number 2, schedule for development, split the property in accordance with the site plan submitted pursuant to section 507 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, and record an egress easement 20 feet in width along the south property line and irrigation easement along the north property line. Condition number 3, submit the certification for a licensed engineer confirming that the roadway referred to in item 1 of the schedule for development was constructed in accordance with standard penetration and chip seal. And like I said, the owner is in a position to penetration chip seal. The last condition, all lots shall be provided with means of irrigation and access to irrigation water prior to development of any of the existing parcels. They have to submit a letter from the irrigation district to the DES confirming that the satisfactory irrigation system is installed and individual lots will have access to irrigation water. Mr. Chairman, this concludes the staff presentation. Any questions for staff?
Questions for staff, board members? No? I'm going to open this to a public hearing, and I'll entertain anybody in the public to come forth and discuss on this particular item.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. My name is Vianney Vega. I'm with Vega & Vega Engineering. I'm representing the property owner for this rezoning case. I have a handout I would like to see if I can pass out to the board if it's possible.
Sure. Nothing obnoxious in it, is it?
Thank you.
The schedule for development number 1 that we are opposing is just not building the road itself. I mean, we're willing to build the ABC road, but the additional field penetration, that's what we're trying to avoid. And of course, the reason behind that is the cost, the additional cost that we feel is not needed. By building the ABC road, we're meeting the requirement that the fire department will, the access will provide to the fire vehicles that is required for the project. The handout that I pass on is a project that my client developed back in 2016. Is a land division that he performed on Avenue 4E, excuse me. And it's also 5 parcels. There's the road. There's a few pictures there that you can see the ABC road only, not with the chip seal. And the road has been since 2016, and it's in very good conditions. The emergency vehicles can access the road. So we feel that there is an additional cost that we really would like to avoid if it's possible. We're talking that by having to do the chip seal on the road, the cost increases anywhere from 1.5 to twice the cost of the road itself. So that's the reason why we are trying to avoid that. And I'll be more than glad to answer any questions that the board might have.
Does the board have any questions? Yeah, sure. Supervisor.
The concrete apron here, is that a county standard?
That's correct.
Okay.
It was a requirement, it was a driveway requirement into the property.
Was this built during the time that was all that was required?
The property that he's referring to was rezoned in 1995 from RA10 to SR4. So that was the reason why the chip seal road was not required.
But it was divided on 2016.
We're not allowed to request the construction of roads during the land division permits. That's my understanding of it.
Yeah, the zoning has already taken
the
place.
zoning has taken place, and we're not allowed to request construction of roads during land division permits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If I may?
Sure.
If it were to be a gravel road, per their request, would the county be required to maintain it?
No, Mr. Chairman, this will be a private access easement and will be maintained by the property owner.
Even if it was a chip seal road, it would
Even if
still
it
be
was a chip seal
maintained. We're
road.
not asking them to do this improvement so we can accept it for county maintenance. We're just simply asking them to do some sort of improvement to provide for homeowners to get to their property. Is that correct? It's a private easement.
Yes.
But the purpose is to cut down on the dust and the PM10 and the issues that we have out on the mesa.
That's one. The other one is that the property owners later complain that, why do we do that? And they just may not understand the difference between a easement and a county road. It happens a lot, more often than not. It's what, we get in trouble with because, people just don't understand the difference. Anyway, what's the board, thank you, Mr. Vega. Mr. Vega. Is there any other comments? Anyone in the public that wants to address the board before I close the public hearing? Well, we're closing the public hearing. I'm closing the public hearing. The only thing that remains is whether we would ask for a gravel road or a chip seal coat. That's pretty much the issue here.
I think we're requiring it of everyone else, so.
I would just say, this is like the chairman says, it's in your district, so it's the wait on to you.
You've been
I think
waiting
we're
for that one, haven't
opening a
you?
can of worms. I think we're opening, Mr. Chairman, I think we're opening a can of worms if we're not requiring the chip seal on this one, and yet there's others out there that are trying to do the exact same thing, and we're requiring the chip seal, so.
Are we requiring the chip seal now of everybody on the private easements?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Our recommendation always being, especially in this area, to do the chip seal and penetration coat.
All right. Let's move on then. Oh, am I supposed to make a motion too?
Well, what do you want?
Hey, I had my time.
No, look, I just had.
Excessive requirements.
Yeah, this is one of those situations where you're facing a situation where, but I understand the investment part. I mean, the cost and so on and so forth. But once you sell the property, then we get to deal with the people who live there, who may not necessarily understand. I mean, we discussed this earlier when we talked about streetlights and improvement districts and how people, it's so difficult to do anything after people buy the property because they're assuming that there's some things that should be there that we are supposed to be entrusted to make sure that they're there. And then when they start living there, they realize, well, they bought out in the county and, the county doesn't have all the amenities that the city has. And then they come to us and say, hey, you shouldn't allow that to happen.
Yeah.
So for that reason, and that reason alone, and I understand, I sympathize with the cost. I develop property, so I know what that means. But I think that at some particular point in time, we need to deal with the fact that, people buy properties out there thinking about something, and then when they live there, they start thinking about suburban, urban, kind of improvement. So I'm going to make a motion. We go ahead and follow the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, which was to go ahead and provide for the chip seal, right? All right, well, that's my motion.
Second.
So in a motion and second to go ahead and approve rezoning case number 1904 as approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just a comment, Chair. As we require more things, but one of the things that I don't understand or that we require that the county's not going to take care of it or maintain it, but we say that the owners are going to. The developer, once they sell those properties, then it goes to the property owners.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, do we follow up on that if we are relying that they're going to maintain it?
I think that we need to do some sort of disclosure at the beginning that states that this is a private easement and that, the owners are going to be responsible for the upkeep and maintenance when the property is sold, so that there is no way to misinterpret something. Maybe it's just a matter of us adding something to that. Now, the other issue I have with chip seal is that it is much more, once that starts deteriorating. It's a lot easier to fix a gravel road than it is to fix a chip seal road by the property owners, because chip seal will require a lot more work and a lot more expense for the property owners to fix. So at this particular time, it is difficult for me, because I understand that at the beginning, we're looking at doing the best we can for the buyer. But at the end, are we doing the best for them actually when we require an improved roadway, semi-improved roadway, that they're going to have to fix if it breaks down? It's difficult for me, but
My question is, if we're enforcing, or who's going to enforce if it's a private easement, who's going to enforce it to be maintained?
the property owners. Yeah, that's right, and that's the.
But yeah, that's a problem.
Who's gonna make
You're
that?
not gonna. I mean, it's a cost. You're not gonna.
Okay, well then, what?
Is there something too we can put on, like the
Disclosure?
parcel number, something like you were saying, that lets them know if they're buying that they are responsible for the road upkeep?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is there some sort of disclosure statement that we can make, or is there some sort of a cost? Go ahead. We're not done here. We're still discussing. There hasn't been a vote, so, I know that the
was already
backup
there.
was up, but.
Mr. Chairman, during the land division process, when we record a land division permit, it is recorded with the land that the easement is private, and it's the responsibility of the property owners to maintain the easement.
Okay, so when the land division is done, now the other question for me is, what's the difference in cost in, say, repairing a gravel road, a simple gravel road, and a chip seal road?
I don't know the difference in cost. Maybe engineering will be able to help me.
Or
with
maybe
that.
via name, Mr. Vega would have an
VNA,
idea. Do you have an idea, Mr. Vega?
I mean, it's difficult to.
It's difficult to assess, depending on how damaged it is.
Or they let it go?
And you know that happens.
Mr.
And the
Chairman,
problem is, you got a bunch of potholes in the.
we also have, as part of the performance condition, an infrastructure disclosure statement. The infrastructure disclosure statement is gonna disclose the easement and the maintenance of the road.
We could have 10 documents saying that, and the private owner, the private owner will complain anyway. That why they're paying their taxes and they're not getting any services from the county. I get that all the time. So not right now, we're just discussing the difference between having a chip seal road in the middle of nowhere and, what it would cost to maintain it for the property owner.
After 15 years, when it starts breaking down, it'll be an issue.
It will be an issue.
It'll be an issue when one owner wants to fix it and the other three or four don't want to pay for it. So.
Well, it's easier to fix a gravel road, I can tell you that much. It's difficult to fix a chip seal road, because once it's like a regular road. Once it starts breaking up, in chunks.
Mr. Chairman, aren't we requiring this, the chip seal for all new land splits? And if we're requiring this for all new land splits, how come we're changing it? Or talking about changing it?
Because sometimes, go ahead.
I think my question is this, if we require, who's going to enforce it? I mean, if the county has no authority to do that, then why are we?
Private property, because it'll be private property after this?
Yeah. Why are we asking for it?
Because we're in charge of making those decisions. It's only, that's why we're requiring it.
And
because essentially,
because we have a huge PM10 and ozone issue with our agricultural areas, and with meeting those PM10s and being able to have industry come in because of the overlay of PM10 and ozone. And this is the whole point of having the chip seal, was to lessen the amount of dirt that we're raising into the atmosphere and lowering the PM10 in the ozone layer, so that we are in compliance, so that we can bring in industry. I mean, that's
a stretch, but I can see.
That's the whole purpose of requiring that. So.
Okay, so the question that you asked has no answer. Who is in charge of enforcing it? It's the property owners themselves.
Well, it'll have, whatever we require will have to be done before the land division permit.
Yeah, and that's the answer to that question. Why are we doing this?
We don't force people to grow grass in the yard or not.
Mm-mm.
Same thing, this is gonna be private property.
Like I said, my concern is just that the homeowner or the landowner that buys this clearly understands that it's up to the people that live in that subdivision or in that cul-de-sac. It's up to them to come together and fix the road.
Well,
or whatever
actually, I
issues.
think the property owner is going to be happy to get a chip seal road at the beginning. My
Mhm.
question is, after a few years, will he be as happy having to repair it himself? And that's what we give up when we get into this type of situation. Anyway, I made a motion reluctantly, and, it was second.
To include the chip
To include the chip
Mhm.
seal, so now, we're stuck in that motion. All of those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Nay.
Hey,
Three ayes and two nays, yeah. 3 ayes, 2 nays. And I think the issue of future maintenance should be discussed. I mean, if we're gonna be requesting improvements, we need to make sure that when we request the improvements, we provide at least a clear explanation of who's going to be in charge of them afterwards, because I think we're getting into a situation where we're forcing developers to provide more improvements. At the same time, we're leaving the issue of who's going to maintain them in the air. I mean, no, it's not in the air totally, but it's in the air at the end. Anyway, that was
yeah, it's worth talking about, if I may, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman. I mean, I don't like being inconsistent, but when you look at this, it just, to service 4 parcels, I don't know. It just, a lot of expense for 4 parcels. And I guess that's where I have a problem with it, is, government requiring excessive spending. But there are both sides. I mean, I understand.
Well,
it's
I
hard
look
to
at
figure
it,
these out.
I look at it this way. I mean, if you were doing 5 parcels or 6 parcels, you would be required to pave it, to put a lot more improvements, because it would be a subdivision.
Mhm.
And, in a subdivision, it's really where the cost really, balloons, because now you're talking about major improvements. When you're doing county properties like this, obviously, we had to find some sort of middle ground. To us, middle ground used to be gravel roads, really. That was the middle ground. We were requesting gravel roads so people would know that's your roadway, that's what you use to get home. We're now getting into a different level of situations, because people are coming back saying, okay, why did you do that? Why did you not ask for a roadway? We're not gonna ask someone to pave a roadway for 4 lots. But gravel roads seem to be inadequate when it really comes down to controlling some of the dust and some of the problems that we're having right now. So we're now in an era where I think as supervisors, we're just trying to find that middle ground where we don't kill the private projects by requiring an enormous amount of improvements. At the same time, we have issues like we just had at the last item where, people who have site-built homes don't like mobile homes in their area, which is, to me, a little bit, that's sort of an issue that, is gonna come back up again. In this particular case, we're just making a decision of how, to what level are we going to get to when we require certain improvements to be made before people move out in the county. And I think we made the rule, so now it's very difficult to see. That's the only argument that really, flies in here. We made the rule, so now are we going to live by it, or are we going to say every individual case is going to be different? And if we don't make it consistent, then we're going to have a problem, because people are going to come and say, hey, why did they do it?
And they do it, but I
and
can't.
we can't do it.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to talk about that. If we have a problem with that rule, then we need to talk about it. And I understand, and I make it clear that every zoning case is an individual case. To me, there is no precedent that really applies, because it's changed over the last, how many years? I'm not going to admit how many years I've been here, but it's changed quite a bit. And it's always because of legal, changing the rules along
It's
the
been a
way.
while since you gave that speech.
That's right. It's just my complaining session. I just didn't feel comfortable with that decision, but it's a decision that needed to be made, and it was made. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next item. I'm sorry, but we'll move on to the next item, which is a reversion hearing. Number 1, it's in accordance with section 404-01 I-7 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance. The board will conduct a hearing to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former zoning classification in the following cases. Development Service Planning and Zoning, rezoning case 03-43, in accordance with the Yuma County zoning ordinance, section 404.01, that must be an I, or an I, And 7, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development or cause the property to revert to its former rural area, 10-acre minimum size, RA10, which is the zoning classification it had before, on assessor's parcel number 198-14009, located on the west of intersections of Avenue 15E and 44th Street alignment, Yuma, Arizona. You will provide a short oral case summary and a power presentation if requested, right? So what do you guys want? The short oral case summary? If you can speak that long, make it.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes. We have a summarized script for you on this reversion case. This is, as you mentioned, parcel 198-14009, shown on the vicinity map. The case was approved by the board back on April 5th of 2004, subject to a schedule for development. The deadline for completion of the schedule for development was April 5th of 2009. As of today, the schedule for development has not been complied with. The owner's agent contacted staff requesting an extension of time for this rezoning case. They're asking for 10 years. The board has the following options: grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, or revert the zoning to its original RA10 zoning classification. Staff is recommending that this zoning case be reverted back to the RA10. However, further discussion with the applicant's agent, we might be okay with the support of an extension of time. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Okay. 10 years?
10 years.
That is what the agent is requesting, yes.
That's awfully long.
Yeah.
This was originally back in 2004, is when the rezoning was done?
Chairman Reyes, that is correct.
13 years ago, 14 years ago. Plus another 10 years, it'll be 24 years to do an RV park. Well, anyway, I gotta open it to the public, so let's open it to the public.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Morning.
I'm Kevin Dahl, Robinson Associates, 1560 South Fifth Avenue. Representing Ravines Development. So one piece of information that was left out of that is that ownership transferred a couple of years ago from Shepherd Development to the Ravines Development. So Ravines Development is now actively pursuing a tentative plat and a final plat for the next unit. And that's the reason for the time extension. Now, 10 years seems like a long time, but in this market, who knows how fast things are going to develop. And it's going to take a couple of years to get off the ground. Now, mind you, Unit 1 is there, and 1 is subdivided, and Ravines Development is currently building homes on 1. So they're currently developing out there. So by the time Unit 2 gets forward through a tentative plat and a final plat, it could take 5 years. It's 72 acres.
Where's Unit 1?
Unit 1 is FME 31.
And that's RVS as well?
It's a single family built, stick built is being built out there.
That was Unit 1.
I just think 10 years is a long time, no matter what. I wouldn't have, normally we stand it for 2 years, 3 years or something, just to give people some time. 5 years to me, it's plenty of time to find out if you're going to be able to move. You can always ask for another extension.
Mr. Chairman, so I'm not here again 5 years from now, God willing. The idea would be is that the first case, there's 2 cases here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're being, I'm tying these together, so.
Oh,
there's another case coming up after this, which is number 7, parcel number 7. So 2 and 5 on this is fine. If we had 2 years for the tentative and 5 years for the final, for this case, it's fine. It'd be the next case that we'd want to advance to get time to develop 9, to get to 7, which is north of 9 there.
Well, it's 7 years. I mean, if you say 2 years for the first, then it forces you to produce something in the first 2 years.
Mr. Chairman, the way I read this is it's 2 years and then 5 years total.
5 total.
Oh, 5 total. Mm-hmm. Well, I thought it was 2 years and 5.
I'm good with that.
Yeah.
So
10 is too much.
All right.
5.
So 5 is okay?
Mm-hmm.
I said 5 was fine with me, so. Is there any,
Mr. Chairman.
let me close the, yeah, on this one.
So again, this
On
is
this
fine for this case. The next
Okay.
case we'll talk.
All right, so, thank you. Anybody else here in the public that wants to address the board on this particular item? If not, then I'll bring it back to the board for their decision.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve a 5-year extension on rezoning case number 03-43.
I'll second it.
A motion and second to approve a 5-year extension on rezoning case number 03-43. Any more discussion on this item? If none, all those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Motion carries. And we move on to item number 2, rezoning case number 0344, in accordance with the Yuma County zoning ordinance, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development, or cause the property to revert to its former rural area 10-acre minimum size, zoning classification, assessor's parcel number 198-1400007, located on the east of intersections of Avenue 14E and 44th Street alignment in Yuma, Arizona. Again, we can get a small condensed version of this one?
Thank
Can
you.
we?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. This case was also approved by the board on April 5th, 2004, subject to a schedule for development. The deadline for completion of the schedule for development was April 5th of 2009. As of today, the schedule for development has not been completed. The owner's agent is also requesting an extension of time. The board has the option of either granting the extension of time to comply with the schedule for development or reverting the zoning to original RA10 zoning district. And staff is recommending reverting the zoning to its original RA10 zoning district.
Okay, I'm gonna open this to a public hearing. Go ahead. Kevin Dahl, for the record.
So this is where the 10 years comes in, because it's going to take a number of years to get number 9 developed. So these are on the same track, mind you. 7 and 9 are based on the same board approval. So we'd have 5 years to complete 7 now too. So that's where the extension of time comes in on 7. And if you're only comfortable doing 5, we'll come back here 5 years and talk to you again, I guess, if we're not done. So that's where the time came in.
Look, I'm a pro-development kind of guy. I've proven that over time. And look, to me, the less barriers we put in front of development, once they want to follow through with their plans, I think that our concern is that there's a bunch of cases out there that there's really no movement on. The fact that somebody bought them 2 years ago is really important to me, because it means that somebody is now duly interested in proceeding. So to me, now giving them extensions makes sense, because I know how development works. I mean, you're not going to develop both of them at the same time. One is going to take you between 2 and 5 years, and obviously the other one's going to take you after 5 years to get it going, because you don't want to flood the market either. So
it's based on the market, Mr. Chairman. Yeah.
So what is? Thank you. Anybody else on the public that wants to? Oh, wait a minute. You want to have a question?
No, I see where he's coming from on it. When did you guys obtain the land?
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, Mr. Simmons?
When did you obtain the
2 years
land
ago?
from Checkard?
Approximately a couple of years. I can find the exact.
Just a couple of years ago? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing regretful is who brought the case up? Staff? See, that's the problem right there.
Yeah, well, we've asked them to catch up.
I know, but
Yeah,
If I may,
we've
Mr.
asked them to
Chairman.
catch up on, yeah, thank you.
Normally, like 10 years would be like, but in this particular case, I think it makes sense.
5 for the one piece and 2.
All right, let me
Well, we
close
already
the
did
public.
one
Let
for
me
5.
let me
Yeah.
close the public hearing. We can always say 5 beginning 5 years from now.
You could.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Nothing? I'm close to public hearing. Back to the supervisors for their motion. I hear that there's some sympathy for the 10-year extension now, based on the fact that we gave the first portion of this a 5-year extension. Is there a motion to that effect?
Yes, I move that we grant an extension of time for 10 years.
For this particular
Case number 03-44.
case number 0344. Is there a
Yes.
second?
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second on rezoning case number 0344 to grant them a 10-year extension as requested by the landowner. Are there any comments or?
Just a comment for staff that if we can keep, keep on it as
Keep on
the
it.
years go by, and if it
Keep an eye on it.
transfer of ownership that we are aware of and pursue.
Oh, I don't think that's up to staff.
It's okay.
No.
I think what you mean is, the notices
The notices that
should go to
because
somebody.
we're looking at this case because of the, what the cases that are out there, that we gave them so many years
And they didn't do
and they
anything.
didn't comply.
I think.
So what I'm asking staff is that,
Keep an eye.
if we're gonna, if 10 years come by and don't, or 5 years on the first one, and nothing's done, no movement, I think I want to hear about it.
That's right. So I think that the difference is not during the time of sale, which is what you objected to, because there's no way to track that. We don't have any way that we know that. But what we should do is create a system where we advise the property owners, look, you're getting to a year, for example, and begin that process before they actually run out of time. And then we have them like, they ran out of time in 2009, and now we're finding out 10 years later. That's the system that I think we'd like to see, where you flag the case so that a year before it ends, you will notice them and find out if, what's going on with them before they have to come over for a revision clause.
It just, because we gave 5 years on the previous item. If they don't do anything, no movement in 5 years, I guarantee you on this one, they ain't gonna be 10 years, so it's gonna be past that, so.
They've got to have the first one to do the
So
second.
he's gotta have the first one, so it's.
I got it. Keep an eye on them, especially when we're starting to give, extensions this long. The idea is to keep an eye on them. Yeah, I know you had your hand up, but you can't talk anyway, so what?
Reyes, actually, if the board decides to extend this request, we recommend that a schedule for development disclosure statement be included with the recommendation, be recorded.
Oh, so that it be recorded, yeah. I thought, well, we need to make that a requirement anyway.
I have a question. What if we change all the regulation and rules between the time that they develop 9 and the time that they develop 7?
That's their problem.
They
will
don't have to comply with any of the new rules.
They will, if they want their plans approved.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, the review of the plans is different. It's based on what it is currently, not when it was approved.
Okay.
This is a zoning
This
matter.
is just zoning.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
In other words, what we're dealing with right now is the vesting of the zoning.
Okay.
Right? We approve the zoning with some restrictions. If those
Yes.
restrictions aren't met, the zoning isn't vested,
Okay.
right? Or it's vested, but it can be reversed,
Yeah.
reversion. And there's a difference between that and the planning stages where you have to bring in, your design, your plans, your plot plans, and so on and so forth,
Oh,
which
got
have
it.
to meet.
Okay, because it's a
Yeah.
whole subdivision.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so we understand
Sorry.
now that what we're talking about is 5 years for the prior one and 10 years for this one. And please keep an eye on them so Supervisor Porteous, if he's here 10 years from now, doesn't get to deal with this stuff.
And what do we need to?
Because he's gonna say no next time. All right,
And what do we need to?
be
come forward?
warned. All right, so there's been a motion and a second. We've had discussion, I hope. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Chairman Reyes.
Oh, you had needed to say something?
The schedule for development.
Oh,
We
the
need to-
schedule for
We need to
development.
put that in there. Yes.
All right, so the motion is going to be that we approve the 10-year extension, but renew the requirements for the schedule for development,
There you go.
right?
That we recorded.
I'll amend my motion.
Okay, hold on a minute. Let's see what Maggie has to say.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, staff is asking that as a condition of the extension of time, granting the extension of time, that the property owner record a schedule for development disclosure statement within 60 days, I believe the recommendation is.
In other words, just like an intent to, I intend to develop, and this is the
In 30 days.
schedule for development?
Schedule for development disclosure
In
statement.
this one?
So, yes, so if the property gets transferred, a new property owner will be made aware of the fact that
Yeah,
there's a pending schedule for development.
Well, as a
in the
matter of
case.
fact, that we should do that on this,
We
all
should do that
reversion
on all
cases,
of
so that it doesn't happen again, that we have a sale and the new owner doesn't realize that his schedule for development's already expired.
Yes.
So, okay, so the motion, if allowed, we will have an amended motion if it's necessary, that will say that we approve the 10-year extension with the condition that a schedule for development be filed within, what was
30
it?
days.
30?
Six-
No, 30 is too, 30?
30 days, that's a recommendation.
30 days, is that okay, Kevin, or do you need more time? Well, whatever, the applicant. It's fine? 60 days, I think is normal. It's okay. No, you can't win no more. All right, so do I have an amended motion?
I amend my motion to reflect that.
Is there a second to that amendment?
60 days.
I'll second.
All right, so there's an amended motion that allows for a 10-year extension of time to comply, but that requires that a 60-day schedule for development be filed within 60 days, excuse me, that a schedule for development be filed within 60 days. Okay, we're now gonna vote on the amended motion. We're gonna discard the first one. All those in favor of the amended motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries. Did we do okay, legal? We look a little, like, okay.
You could argue that you've just amended the motion and you could take another vote on the amended
We need
motion.
to take another vote.
Didn't I?
No, we need to take a vote. The motion's now amended.
Right?
Now we need to vote on the
Now
amended
we
motion.
I thought I said that, but it's okay. Okay, so we voted on the amendment first. Now we're voting on the motion amended, right? So, okay, guys, we're gonna take a vote on the amended motion that we just approved. So all those in favor of the amended motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Okay, just in case, we did it twice. All right. We are going to move on to the next item, which is, where am I, 4? 3? Item 3. Rezoning case 0614, in accordance with Yuma County zoning ordinance section 404.01, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, determine compliance with the schedule for development of cost of property to revert to its former rural area 10-acre minimum size, zoning classification, assessors parcel 75505.001, previously APN 101-14-017, located in the southwest corner of County 16th Street and Avenue 1E, Yuma, Arizona, which is located in the 65 decibel noise zone. Okay. Okay, fine. Short presentation.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes and members of the board. This case was approved by the board back on May 15 of 2006, subject to a schedule for development. The deadline for completion of the schedule for development was May 15th of 2011. As of today, the schedule for development is not being complied with. The owner contacted staff and requested an extension of time of two or 3 years to comply with the schedule for development. The board has the options of either granting an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development or reverting the zoning to its original RA10 zoning district. Staff is recommending that this case be reverted to the zoning of RA10, original zoning classification. If the board decides to extend this, staff is recommending 30 days for recordation of a schedule for development. That,
In other words, if we decide to extend it for 2 or 3 years, as was requested by the property owner, we would like to request that he file a disclosure statement within 30
recordation of the
days?
schedule for development disclosure statement, yes. It's part of the extension.
Why is 30 days? Why are you fixed on 30 days?
Well,
60 days?
that's what the case planner recommended. We would be okay with 60 days.
Okay, all right. No, I just thought there may be a reason. I mean, normally people who haven't done much in their property for a long time, you put them on a 30-day clock. I mean, it's fine, but it may put them in a situation where they have to. There's not that much to do, actually.
Mr. Chairman, the reason for the extension of time or providing a 30-day timeline to record the schedule for development disclosure statement is that the applicant has been in contact with us. So they are the ones that are requesting the extension of time. And since they're in contact with us, it's a matter of us providing the form to them and them recording it or taking over to the recorder's office and getting it recorded.
Okay, so it's a simple process
Yes.
that can be done in 24 hours. So you're saying 30 days is plenty of time, and if you extend it to 60, they may forget.
There's that possibility.
Okay, all right, well, that's an answer.
What happens if that doesn't get filed? Does the extension go away?
Chairman Reyes, if that does not get filed, then
They haven't met the requirement.
They didn't meet the requirement, so it doesn't the case doesn't get extended.
That means if they don't meet it, they'll lose it. They lose the reversion. Because it's part of the requirement to make that reversion official. Right? No.
I see uncertainty.
What's a requirement?
Right, Mr. Chairman, if they fail to record the disclosure, the schedule for development disclosure statement, the extension of time would not take effect.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
And Mr. Chairman, this is, I guess, the third time we're going, or the second time we're going to do this. I would recommend that the motion be that they get the extension for the amount of time you want to give them, condition on them filing the, or recording
Yeah.
the notice of the disclosure or
But
schedule
it's a
for development.
condition, a condition to be met.
A condition of the extension.
And if the condition isn't met, that the property reverts.
Yeah.
And
I
that
think
would-
we all assume that's what happened, but we might as well make it into the motion.
I agree.
All right.
That needs to be written up that way from now on.
All right.
And staff should probably write that up and include that in your packages.
Right, good. All right. We've had a public hearing yet?
No,
No?
not yet.
We'll open up to the public. Is there anyone in the public that wants to say something?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Aida Urbieta, 3391 South 15th Avenue. I'm one of the owners of this property. And I would like for me to, I'm new on this, and this is the first time that I have come to discuss one of these matters. So I want to find out what is the procedure to follow?
Maggie will take care of that.
Okay.
Maggie Miscarra. So Maggie is the director, so,
Right
you know,
behind
staff
you.
will do it. Right behind you. The one that keeps coming up in front of the board. The one that keeps coming up in front of the board.
You know, I would like to have more time. 30 days for me probably is not sufficient. 60 days will be better so I can discuss this with the engineering department,
All right.
my engineer.
I-
And he's
oh,
out of town.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. 30 days, 60 days. I don't think it, you know, it's that critical, but especially if the property owner requests so. I mean, and you're here, so.
You can give me 5 years also, you know.
This is what happens. There's no precedent.
You gave it to him, you know.
Oh.
It's nice to request it too.
Oh, you were doing so
told
well.
you.
Playing that, I don't know what I'm doing thing, but.
I told you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll take it into consideration. Okay, so I'm closing the public hearing, bringing it back to the board. What is the board's decision?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that rezoning case number 06-14, that we approve an extension of time for 3 years, contingent upon the applicant filing.
Okay.
Condition. Condition is the right word, condition. Contingent?
Contingent on,
Okay.
yeah,
That's a condition.
they file notification of the schedule for development with the recorder's office within 45 days. Meeting in the middle.
Oh, you're meeting in the middle. You're so funny.
All right, well,
Politician.
all right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so, on rezoning case, which one is it? 4?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes?
staff would like to suggest that the wording brought up by, I believe it was Supervisor McLeod about the zoning reverting if the schedule for development is not recorded. So the condition would read, a schedule for development disclosure statement shall be recorded within, according to the motion, 45 days. If the schedule for development disclosure statement is not recorded, the zoning will revert to RA 10.
I amend my motion to read exactly like that.
Thank you.
No, don't amend it. You know, we gotta vote on the amended motion, and then we
I'm
gotta
not going to
vote.
remember how to say all that.
Oh, well. Okay, well, if you, I don't know, I think it's cleaner if you just take back your motion and do a new one. Can you do that?
If
Maggie, would you bring me that verbiage?
if the second also agrees, sure.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. Would you do agree to pull it back
Yes,
and
I agree
redo a
to
new
pull it
motion?
back.
Good. Let's have the new motion. Maggie, you gotta read that again. That's Maggie, who you have to contact, you know.
Mr. Chairman, the condition would read as follows. A schedule for development disclosure statement shall be recorded within 45 days. If the schedule for development disclosure statement is not recorded within 45 days, the zoning will revert to rural area 10-acre minimum.
You forgot to
I
mention the
move that
3-year
we
extension.
extend For 3 years with exactly that
With that.
verbiage attached.
All right, well, next time just bring it in so we can read it.
Oh, they will.
Okay, all right, so
I'll
the
second.
motion, there's been a motion and a second, a restated motion and a second. Is there any more discussion on this item? No? All those in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Hope it wasn't too painful. The next one is rezoning case number 13-01 in accordance with section 404.01, parentheses I, parentheses 7 of the Yuma County zoning ordinance, action to grant an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development of cost of property to revert to its former IA rural agricultural 10 zoning classification. This is on assessor's parcel number 197-21-005 located on the east side of State Route 195 between County 13 and County 13 and a half, Yuma, Arizona. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman Reyes, members of the board. This case was approved by the Board of Supervisors back on May 6th of 2013, subject to a schedule for development. The deadline for completion of the schedule for development was May 6th of 2018. As of today, the schedule for development has not been complied with. The owner contacted staff and is requesting an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development. The board has the options of either granting an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development or reverting the zoning to its original RA10 zoning district. Staff recommends reverting the zoning to its original RA10 zoning district. If the board grants an extension of time to comply with the schedule for development, staff recommends attaching the following condition. Within 60 days, the owner shall or agent shall record a schedule for development disclosure statement. If the schedule for development disclosure statement is not recorded within 60 days, the case will be reverted to its original zoning of RA10.
So it just follows what we just discussed, right?
The zoning will be reverted to original zoning classification.
So if we
of RA10.
decide to grant an extension of any time, it will be accompanied by a condition, the condition you just read, right? And this time it's 60 days. Okay, well, okay. All right, you just hit it at the wrong time. I don't know why 30, 60 days, I don't know what determines what goes on, but you just didn't hit the jackpot. All right, okay, so let me open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the public to address rezoning case number 1301? If not, then we'll move back to the board for their consideration.
Mr. Colvin.
Oh. Mr. Colvin.
Mr. Chairman, Craig Colvin, Colvin Engineering, 6105 East Alyssa Lane in Yuma. Again, just the reasons for this coming back is development is starting to happen, and they have the owner has several other parcels that are finally happening. So, but we'd like to request a 20-year extension, if that'd be okay.
It would be funny if you
We
didn't.
can negotiate on that if that's okay. But no.
6 months. It's over.
No, 5 years would be very helpful. The reason I do in jest say 20 years, but if I may, the concern is the reversions, and I know this comes to the board all the time now because of a condition that was set for zoning cases. And years and years ago, those of us that have been around forever, when you rezoned a property, it was zoned, and that's the way it stayed. And I think it's not very cost effective for you to have to come back and the staff to have to come back and continue to keep coming back and begging for extensions because of the economy. I'm just not sure why we keep coming back for
I'll tell
those
you why,
reversions.
Mr. Colvin, because when we did rezonings, there were some requirements that had to be met for that rezoning to be vested, and people ended up selling the property without doing the items that they were supposed to do. So we ended up with a situation where, like the case prior, where 2 years ago they bought the property thinking that zoning was vested, and it wasn't. So we were trying to find a middle ground where we're really not doing many reversions per se. If somebody requests an extension, normally if they can give us any kind of reason that is reasonable, we would grant an extension, because my take of this board is that we're willing to work with anyone that wants to develop anything in Yuma County. But there has been some abuses of the process, of the rezoning process, that we're trying to narrow down and make sure that people, when they buy property, they're fully aware of of what they need to do to actually enjoy the zoning that they're supposed to be buying the property with.
Yeah, we have cases where they purchased and it's worthless.
Yes.
And it's just, our way, Supervisor Portia's way of making sure that we don't commit the same mistake twice.
And I understand the reversions, there's nothing we can do about. There's conditions that are already set, but in the future, I hope that we don't have to set so many conditions so that his property can be rezoned that's obvious for the property. It's not going to revert back to agriculture in the middle of a developed area.
Yeah, I think most of the time, those conditions weren't really that difficult to meet. What happened is people weren't meeting them because there was no market.
Yeah.
And so we're now trying to bring us up to date. As you probably noticed, this one is one of those that, it only expired May this
just
year.
recently.
So it's really, we're trying to keep that really close so that we don't have this situation. We have disclosure statements now, making sure that people, when they buy, they understand they're buying with some conditions. So that it's just a buyer beware thing that, we really resent coming to us, because in some ways, most of these actions are in good faith. We hope people do what they say they're going to do, but when they don't do it and somebody else, gets involved in the process, where the blame is going to lay. So, okay?
We appreciate that. I know I've been through a lot of these, and the board has been very helpful with helping these go through.
All right. Well, the 20 years is off the books.
It's off. Okay. Thank you.
It's not going to happen. But, all right. So I'm closing the public hearing, bringing it back to the board for their discussion. Is there a motion to rezoning case number 1301?
Mr. Chairman, rezoning case number 1301, I move that we grant an extension of 5 years, and let's see, and within 60
With the
days,
condition.
with the condition that within 60 days, the owner or their agent shall record a schedule for development disclosure statement.
If the schedule for development.
If the schedule for development is not met,
within
the
60 days.
zoning will revert.
To its original zone.
Case is reverted to its original RA10 zoning application.
What he said. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
I second.
There's a motion and a second to approve rezoning case number 1301 as stated. Is there any discussion on this item? No discussion. All those in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? The motion carries. That takes care of the rezoning cases, and we're down to event calendar, current events, and I will entertain reports from board members and the county administrator just before we leave. This is a very boring part. You're not requested to stay. Something better to do, but Mr. Colvin, you are requested to stay. Your prior statements. All right, board members, Supervisor Pancras.
I attended Visit Yuma's annual breakfast meeting and listened to a presentation from a speaker who writes for the Arizona Republic, who was very, very good. I attended my Hospice of Yuma board meeting and my North Star board meeting. And then I attended it's a response protocol at the health department, along with Supervisor Simmons by a group called I Love You Guys Foundation. It's about school evacuation, school
Business,
yeah,
everything.
yeah. So, and it was very, very, very informative. I also attended the Helios Foundation, Ready Now Yuma, with the high school for their presentation. And other than that, things have been pretty slow, kind of quiet.
As they should be. They should be. Supervisor McLeod.
Yeah, I attended various events at NACO. It was a great event and a very interesting election. I think they called it historic. There were 3 candidates, and out of almost
2,800
votes or something like that, the gentleman Gary Moore, who won by 6 votes.
Dang.
over the
Over
50%
2,000
mark.
and something,
It was-
2,300.
Yeah, it was
Wow.
really close. So, other than that, that's all I have.
Supervisor Simmons.
Invited to be the guest speaker at the Yuma County Correction Officers graduation, which was kind of an honor for me to be on the patrol
yeah.
side. It was nice going to talk to the new detention graduates. Had a meeting with a gentleman that's going to be coming to the board reference to a new solar plant out in the Dayton area. Met with Lowell Perry. He's the one taking Charles Flynn's spot over at he's the new executive director for Yuma Crossing National Heritage Area. Very eager. I think he's going to do a good job over there, but he's got some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, he does.
With Charles. So I wish him nothing but the best, and we're here to help him. Also had a meeting, a community meeting out in the foothills, my monthly one. Had numerous meetings with the owner out at Castle Dome Museum and Fish and Wildlife, and we've made some pretty good strides towards that. It looks like we're going to be able to have it open for hunting season. We've got
To open it?
Huh?
He's agreed to open it?
We're opening up for hunting season, and we're working on full-time access right now. We've got a scheduled development looking at sometime in next October, not this October, but next October, having the road in, the new bypass road in and open for the public, hopefully sooner. But right now, that's the schedule we're looking at with Fish and Wildlife. That's just ongoing meetings with that. Met with some residents reference to some traffic control measures over on 35th Place we've been working on, speeding vehicles in the area and such. Again, attended the standard response protocol with Supervisor Pancrazzi. Diane Gomez and Robinson did a great job putting that together
Yes,
and bringing
they did.
them here. I think it'll do. I think it's going to be a good thing for the county to get on board with and spread the word with it. And that's about it.
All right, Supervisor Porches.
I attended the raising of the flag on the 4th of July. It was done by the Caballeros. It was a nice event. And I also attended NACO.
But don't forget the fact that you met with the mayor-elect.
Yes, and I met with the mayor from elect from San Luis, Sonora, and he does want to meet the board of supervisors. So.
And make a comment, if I may,
Sure.
Mr. Supervisor, about the job that Supervisor Porches did at NACO, getting those resolutions passed and before they're just good job on that.
Thank you.
They were just fortunate enough to arrive there because their flight would delay for a long time. I heard, somebody had to wait for them like most of the day at the airport.
And I want to thank Chairman Reyes for picking us up at the airport.
I was intending to leave you guys there, but I also attended the National Association of Counties. It was interesting. I'd been attending the Association of Counties for years, and by far, this was the most exciting election.
By far.
We were about to be the last one because this was decided by the last state that voted, and we were like the third to last or something like that. So it was one of those situations where every vote did count, and there was a lot of It was a very good meeting. The location was great.
Actually, our delegation had enough votes to push them over the top.
Yes, they did. Yes, we did. And we could have gotten to that point, but anyway, it was one of the most productive ones we have attended. And I do also want to thank Supervisor Porches and Supervisor Robin Stalwart for the job and pushing those resolutions that we had to get passed. It was well done, and it was a lot of comments. I am a member of the Immigration Reform Committee, and that was interesting. It's getting to a point now where I think that immigration reform, just the term reform, drives a lot of people to take very, very opposite positions, and it was sort of an interesting meeting to attend. And again, the delegation from Arizona is well represented in that committee. The chairman of the committee and a couple of members, are from Yuma. I mean, not from Yuma, from Arizona, and they were very active on it. So it was a good trip overall. And I attended the 4th of July celebration in San Luis, the fireworks and stuff. And that's always exciting. It's, you know, it's one of the best. I consider to be one of the South County's best in our regards to Somerton area, but still South County. And I do want to make a comment about Somerton's growth and what I've seen over the last few years, if I may. You know, just notwithstanding the fact that Supervisor Porches was the mayor of that town, I have been pleasantly surprised to see all the improvements that have been made in that community over the last few years. It is nothing like the community I used to represent. It is a much more vibrant community. It has a lot more to it. I mean, it's, you know, I used to think Somerton was going to continue being sort of like a bedroom community, but it isn't. It is now taking its place as one of the most active and one of the most progressive communities in South County, and I wanted to make sure that they know that and that they can actually get it from someone that's been looking at it for a long time. Anyway, thank you. Susan?
I'll pass that around.
Okay, thank you.
Don't let all these accolades go to you.
Just don't speak again at the board meeting.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I also attended the NACO conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I also want to thank Paul Melcher for his work on the behind the scenes
Not
on
signing this
resolutions and working with other
Yeah.
delegates across the country to make the especially the H2A changes successfully passed as a proposal. The deadline for the CSA legislative proposals from all the counties is August 13th. And I know there's been one item discussed which was related to CAGRID, and I think that Supervisor McLeod was going to speak with the CSA to find out
Right.
water-related issues, what's the best approach to
Good.
take.
Thank you.
And I know the governor has made water a priority as well, so there may be some things coming from that direction. And as I learn more about that, I'll let the board know. So if you do have any other proposals that we want to consider for the state legislative summit in October, those are due August 13th, so please let me know if you think of anything that you want for us.
All right. I think that pretty much wraps up the action items that we had. Is there, I'm afraid to ask if there's anything else you guys like to add, because you always have something to add. So I'm just going to say there being no more business to attend to, this meeting is adjourned.